ever going to start this podcast you've been talking about for like forever?
Do you think that anyone will actually want to listen to something like this?
What is your plan for an introduction?
Are you sure you want to talk about these topics? People usually disagree.
3 hours? Are you crazy?
Do you think you're some kind of expert or something?
Are you planning to have an intro song?
What if a bunch of people get really mad and hate you over this?
Do you even know how to make a podcast?
Are you just doing this because you like to argue with people?
Don't let this be just one more thing that you talk about doing, but never actually do.
Wouldn't it be better to do just one episode for each topic?
Stop trying to change people's opinions. Just live your own life.
Dude, people are never gonna agree. Just let it go.
Is this going to be a long intro? Because if it is, I'm bored already.
Welcome back for another thought-provoking episode of Why Can't We Talk About That? You are about to experience a great discussion. But before that, what's the deal with these drink sizes at Starbucks? I know this is old news, but seriously, who invents these words? Venti? Trenti? Grandy? This is obviously not English, except for tall. And tall you would assume is the biggest, because tall means, well, tall, as in not short. But not at Starbucks. Tall is the smallest size they have, unless you count that really tiny one that they give you for the puppuccino. And yes, that's a real thing. Not that I've ever ordered one of those for my dog, because that's ridiculous. Both the word puppuccino and the idea of giving your dog something you bought from Starbucks. Both ridiculous. So really, what's the deal with that? But that's not what I'm complaining about today. It's the sizes at Starbucks. Is it even the same language? Or is each size a different language? Anyway, on to the episode. My guest this week is Diana Van Pelt, someone who shares my bloodline, her being my cousin on my mom's side. She has had some unique experiences and has some really interesting perspectives on certain things. In today's episode, we discuss the Supremes, Motown, finding truth in history, the Wallflowers, Jack Johnson, 21 Pilots, Aerosmith, Green Day, Blue October, All/Descendnents, Eels, the power of words, how what we hear affects us, salt on a metal plate, kitty cats, the violence of opinion, D.E.I. training, Columbus, the person, not the city, the medical community, evolution, the pressure to speak in tongues, God's timing, free will, praying about it, knowing what God wants us to do, fear, and sheltering children versus guided exposure. Diana is one of my favorite people to talk to because she will usually open my mind up to something that I hadn't thought of before. Maybe today's episode will do the same for you. Enjoy the conversation. Oh, she loves matcha. Yeah.
It's not.
I've been praying for her.
It's not sweetened or anything. It's like straight matcha powder. You have to like doctor it up and make a latte out of it. It's fun. I made one for her. It tastes like marshmallows.
Nasty.
It tasted like marshmallows.
No.
Yeah, no, it did. I'll make you one. I'll let you try one.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. Laura really likes that stuff too.
I don't like it from Starbucks.
That's what she likes it from.
I don't like it.
I think Laura and Addie both like it from Starbucks, actually.
Yeah, it's too strong, the flavor. So I can't taste the matcha at all in that. It tastes like marshmallows when I make it, because I do only a teaspoon, like it says to do. Mm-hmm. And then you put creamer in it and a bunch of milk and then vanilla
extract
syrup.
Oh, syrup. Okay.
So good. Tastes just like marshmallows.
That's so weird. Like none of the things you just said are marshmallow. Yeah, vanilla. It tastes like marshmallows.
Vanilla and sugar.
Oh, that's true. That's probably how that's how they make them. Mm-hmm. Okay. Wow.
Yeah, it's good. Is this it? I don't have a thing right here.
No, it's very, very low key, casual. Just kick back and chill. You know.
Sounds good. Which one's the mean cat?
That one.
That one?
Yep. Earl the girl.
Earl.
Wow.
Hi, Earl.
She does know her name, though.
Hi, you do.
Yeah.
Come here.
She looks like Smokey, huh?
Yeah.
It's so weird because as a kitten, she looked nothing like Smokey, but as she's gotten older, it's like, wow, she looks just like Smokey. Smokey was a sweetheart, and this cat's mean, so that's the only difference. They're not attitude twins.
Is she mean like Angel?
Not that bad. Yeah, I've never crawled out of a bathroom window naked to get away from Earl. So that's the difference, I guess, between Earl and Angel. Oh man. Yeah, that cat was psychotic. But I mean, Earl has her moments.
Hello?
She'll let you pet her and stuff, but when she's done with you petting her, she'll let you know.
Oh.
Yeah, she's one of
She
those.
really likes Addie, huh?
Well, again, depending, she likes everybody until she doesn't. And even that's moment by moment. So it's like,
Does she bite you and then let you go? Or is it like...
She bites, she scratches, I've learned after this many years, because we've had her like 10, 11 years now, I've learned, when she's going to... when she's getting done with it, I can tell when she's like, okay, that's enough.
Yeah.
So how's it going today?
Good.
So far so good?
Yeah.
Still early?
No. I woke up at 7, but I laid in bed. I do that a lot.
Yeah. I don't understand that.
I
I don't. I'm like, either go back to sleep or get up. Like, the whole idea of just laying in bed to me is like, what a waste of time. You're not getting sleep and you're not getting anything
it's
done.
Awful.
So it's just pointless.
And then when you fall back to sleep and then wake up after that, there's no waking up after that. There's like, you're groggy all day.
Right.
It's awful.
Yeah.
So I don't get it either, honestly.
Yeah.
But my body just does it and I just listen.
Because, I mean, I'll have mornings like, well, today's a good example. I woke up pretty earlier than normal. I didn't sleep well last night, which is weird because I usually do. But I kept waking up, and I think I was having weird dreams. But again, I can never remember any of them, and I never remember my dreams.
Oh,
I know.
bummer.
I'm so jealous of you and Alora. Alora always has very vivid dreams that she remembers. She's been like that her whole life. But yeah, but then when I woke up, when I got out of bed, it was like 4:30, and I was like. And I could feel my eyes. I knew I was tired and I needed to sleep, right? Yeah. Like, I could tell my eyes were heavy and they were kind of burning. And I was like, I need more sleep. But then I thought to myself, but if I go back to bed, first of all, I'm probably not going to fall back asleep anyway.
Yeah.
So I just get up, start doing something productive.
4:30?
Mm-hmm. That's pretty standard for me. I'm usually up about 4:30 every day.
I was doing that for a while. I was actually waking up at 4:30 very consistently since October of last year.
Oh, wow.
And I would get up and just read the Bible and sit by the fire. It was actually really cool.
Yeah.
I really liked it.
Yeah.
But then I started to get, sick and, because I was going to bed at, 1 or 2.
Oh, yeah.
And
So
then
you're not getting enough
waking
sleep.
up at 4:30 and then, but then also waking up every half hour in between that. It was awful.
Yeah, you can only do that for so long until it catches up with
so
you.
now I take the extra time to sleep now. But I just need to get my groove back. I've been rocked emotionally and mentally the last 2 years, and my body has just not done well.
Yeah.
It's been,
you really go through some stuff, don't you?
I don't think my life is physically any harder than it's easier than most people's, but mentally it's very difficult. I make things much more difficult than they need to be in my mind, and like this last thing I went through with Tyler and him, with the night terrors and throwing up. There was no medical emergency. It wasn't a real medical emergency, but the stress that I had put on myself from the unknown and not knowing what to do and all that stuff was traumatic.
Right.
Like the stress was traumatic, but the situation was not.
Right.
So.
Well, it sounds traumatic to me. I mean, that whole story was like, dang, that's some crazy stuff going on there. But
it was very stressful.
Yeah.
It was very stressful.
So as a Christian, right? You got the Lord with you. I mean,
I had the Lord.
He's really the only one that can do anything about that anyway.
Yeah. And I had my Bible, and I definitely dug my nose in that the whole time I was there. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't eating. I wasn't functioning as a human in any other way other than reading my Bible.
Yeah.
So that was also great. A great time with him. And I was very, very thankful for that. But it was really hard. It was really awful.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah. We're definitely going to delve into some of that stuff. I'm going to write some of that stuff down once we get to that area.
I'm going to write that down.
All right. Well, music. I start with music because that's easy. So I usually
it's going to be easy.
Well,
but
I like to
me.
say if you can remember what your earliest musical memory is, like as far as the first time you said, I really like that song, or I want to hear that again, or that's really good, or
That's two different things.
Oh, okay.
My first musical memory is waking up on weekends to my mom blasting Supremes and cleaning and vacuuming in the room I'm sleeping in.
Nice.
So that's my first memory, and I love it. Every time
How old were you then?
Huh?
How old were you about?
Probably 6 or 7. Mm-hmm. Because it was in the Edgewood house. Okay. And it was so bright and sunny, and it was already noon, of course, because that's how late I sleep. Summer and the weekend. Yeah. That's my natural circadian rhythm. It's from 1 to noon. Right. I think, and I'm fighting it my whole life, and that's why life is so hard for me. Yeah. Because I can't get it right. Yeah, so that's my first musical memory is the Supremes, and every time I listen to them, it's that memory.
Is it a specific song, or is it just like
nope,
just
all
them
of them?
in general?
They all sound the same.
Does she have like a greatest hits album or something?
Mm-hmm.
Or okay.
Yeah.
8-track, greatest hits 8-track probably?
Yeah. It's just all of them. All of her songs, all of their songs are all the same. It's all unrequited love, and it's very, very nostalgic for me to listen to them. Yeah. So
all that old Motown stuff is just like
so good.
It's so good, and it's one of those eras where you'll just never get that again.
No.
You know what I mean? Like that's never going to be recreated.
Yeah, people try.
Right.
I've heard some pretty good, I don't know, attempts at the doo-wop sound or like whatever, but it's not the same.
Yeah. Or you hear cover songs, right? You hear bands will do a cover of even a Supreme song or whatever, and it's decent. Mm-hmm. But there's just something about the sound of that old stuff. Like it's just it was a time period, you know, it was an era, and it was like, wow, that's just gone now, you know. It
was fantastic. When I used to believe in reincarnation, I thought I was reincarnated from the 50s.
As Diana Ross?
Maybe. That'd be cool.
Yeah. Yeah, the 50s would have been a cool time to live.
I think so.
I mean, at least based on what we see in the movies and stuff.
Yeah, you know? Maybe. As a man, probably. Yeah. But I think it would be way different as a woman. Right. But
well, that's back when we had it right. Back when women weren't allowed to talk and weren't allowed to do anything. Yeah. The men ruled the world. That's what we got to get back to. Obviously. Oh man.
But I mean, I don't know, because history is always morphed into an agenda. I think history is just something that everybody agrees is true, but that doesn't mean it's true. Right. So I don't even know how, you know, and I didn't talk to my grandma enough about those times and what it was like. I didn't talk to my mom even enough about what it was like, and you know, is it really what history books said it was? And so I think those real life conversations are very valuable. Right. So it seems like it wouldn't be great for women, but who knows?
And it's hard too, because I just went through this myself. I was talking to my dad the other day, and my mom, I think, because we were looking at old photo albums and stuff, and I was just thinking to myself, now as an adult, as a 45-year-old, I wish those people were still around. But now that I care, now that I want to hear the stories and I want to know, like, what was that like? And or even you take about like Grandma Phyllis. Oh, I know. Like coming over from Sicily. Like, I know. You know, what about those stories? You might not have been able to get it out of her because she wasn't exactly. Wait. You know.
Grandma's mom's name was Phyllis?
Right?
I have no idea.
Grandma's.
But my dad's mom's name is Phyllis.
I thought it was Phyllis.
It probably is.
Maybe I'm wrong. now you got me. Now you got me second guessing myself.
Write that down.
I think it's Phyllis. Yeah, Grandma Phyllis. That was your dad's grandma's name?
That was my dad's mom's.
Your dad's mom name. Okay.
I think.
Yeah, I'll have to ask. Yeah, you're like, maybe I'm second guessing. But yeah, so I would love to sit down and talk with them about stuff and just, you know, but now that I can't, it's like, what the heck? But I mean, to your history point, you're right. We read the history books and you always have to worry about the bent, right? The bent of whoever wrote the history book. Or were they writing it more, you know, they're painting certain characters out in a bad light because they didn't like that guy? Or, I mean, who really knows, right? Only the people that were there know.
Yeah.
But I would go even further and say, even if you talk to people that were there, their own emotions, their own perceived thoughts and things about other people is going to skew their viewpoint too. Yeah. Because you can talk to somebody about the 50s and they can say, oh, it was like this for women. But even then, you don't. All you're really getting is how that person feels about living in the 50s. That doesn't mean that's really how it was. It just means that's how they felt.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's always so difficult to get to the bottom of those things.
If you take the current COVID era situation and you talk to different people about how it affected them, some people are like, it was nothing. It wasn't a big deal. And some people are like, I will never be the same.
Right.
It was the most awful, traumatic thing I've ever been through, and
or some people are like, I lost my husband, I lost my wife.
Yeah.
Of course that's going to impact them hugely.
So it's it is all in perspective. We did a really cool history exercise in our homeschool, and we took pictures throughout the whole day, printed them out, and then had to organize them in a sequence of events, and
like in chronological order.
Yep, chronological order. And we had to look at clues in the pictures, like who was wearing what did the sun look like when it was coming through the window. That's how we know what time of day it is. And do you remember doing that, and what part of the day did you do this before that, or this, were we outside at this time? So we had to we were there, and we had to organize it, and there was only like one error, right? And then as we increased the amount of time in between the start and the finish of taking the pictures, so then it was a whole week right after that. So you take pictures all week, and then you print those out. And then when it was the whole week, I organized it how it was supposed to be organized. So you do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then you put all the pictures in chronological order under Monday. Then all the pictures in chronological order under Tuesday, then Wednesday. And
sounds time consuming.
It only took a few minutes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's just because it's only, I don't take a whole bunch. I take like 3 or 4 per day, and then you have to organize it. Well, I organized it how it was supposed to, took a picture of what it was supposed to look like, and then I, mixed them up and then had the kids come do the exercise. And there were so many errors. They were there. They wore those clothes. They, and they were detectives trying to figure out what happened on which day, and there were errors, and that was just a week. Take 1,000 years and people who weren't even there,
right,
and have them analyze history, and how many errors are you going to get?
Right.
How much of that is actually truth?
But they're experts.
They are. This is true. Like, I do think they have more tools in their tool belt than we would have in our homeschool at the table. But it really does give you perspective on how to find truth in history. You can't. I really don't think you can.
You can't come to I think 100% accuracy. But I think that the historians do the best they can.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't buy into the idea that it's mostly lies and all the founding fathers were horrendous people. It's like, I'm sure they had issues just like anybody, and I'm sure they did things wrong, and but when they paint it out like they're all like these raging, womanizing, racists or something, it's just like, I don't know about all of them.
I don't hold to anything because I really don't know. They could have been. They could have not been. Who really knows? Nobody really knows. So for anybody to shake their fist and stand on what they think is truth and then make decisions based on that, I think is silly, because we don't really know. We don't.
Right.
You can think, you can have opinions, you can have anything, any kind of inkling of an idea, but you don't really know.
Yeah.
So
why do you think people stand so strongly on that then? Why do you think they're like ready to die on that hill when they really don't have the 100%? Do you think they believe they have the 100% evidence and the proof for that, what they're fighting for?
I think that people adopt an idea and it becomes part of them, and then they have a really hard time admitting that, because then it would be deconstructing their identity.
Right.
And that is traumatic to do.
Right.
It's very hard to do.
But do you think they get to the point where it becomes such a part of them that they just believe it 100%? To where it's like, it's almost like no evidence, no contrary anything can ever convince them otherwise.
Unless it's a very good psychotherapist. I think deconstructing your identity is not, it's traumatic.
Right.
It's very, very hard to do. At least for me it was. I mean, mine got ripped away from me from losing my mom. So knowing that now, I can understand why people hold so firmly to things when there's evidence right in front of their face that it's not true or that it might not be true. Even people are unwilling to acknowledge that something might not be true.
Right.
And it's like, what? Right. You know, then you get why people won't believe that there might be a God, that there might be truth in the Bible, because they'd have to deconstruct what they've built their entire identity on, and that's not easy for anyone to do. It's almost impossible without some sort of event thrusting you into that.
Totally. Deconstruction. Especially with that topic.
Oh yeah.
Right, and that's why there are staunch atheists that have become believers in God.
I know.
And you think to yourself, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, these are guys that are writing books about how God doesn't exist, and yet one day they're like, I was wrong.
I know.
I mean, and how hard for your pride is that to come out and admit that, and that's
a
what
miracle.
makes you.
Those are miracles to me, because
and that shows the validity of it, I think, because why would you do that? Why would you like destroy your whole career and come out and tell everybody that you were wrong all these years about that belief system, and then it's not going to be beneficial for you.
Just like Paul.
Right.
I mean, look at what he had. He didn't just write a book. He had murder on his hands, and he had to live with that. That's what made him such a beautiful minister of Christ. It was really cool. But yeah. Right. That's rough.
Yeah.
So that was my first memory of music.
Oh yeah, we were on music, weren't we?
But
what about this? Yeah, the second question I asked then.
Song that impacted me, that I was like, oh wow, music is life. Music is amazing to me. Was One Headlight by the Wallflowers.
Oh really?
Yeah, I was.
Wow.
My mom was dropping me off at school in junior high.
Okay.
And the song was on 96.1, I think.
Yeah.
Whatever it was.
Yeah. Sly 96.
Sly 96. And I'm listening to the lyrics, and I'm like, oh, wow, this is... I'm finally mature enough to understand lyrics. You know, I was probably 12, 13.
Yeah, you hit that pretty early, I think.
Really?
I think so.
You think that's early?
I mean, you've always been that way to me. Like, you've always had a way of looking at lyrics and music and anything, movies, whatever. Like, you just see symbolism in ways that I envy a lot of the times.
I'm wrong a lot of the time, though.
Yeah.
I think I was that 21 Pilots song. Forest.
Oh, Forest.
I think.
Really? Because I'm pretty sure I hold more to your. Yeah, I hold more to your view. The only lyric that still gets me is where they say.
Songs with no.
Yeah, what's he say? Songs that nobody wrote.
Yeah, that's the one that gets me
because that makes it sound like it's something that was divine.
A good thing.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Or something that wasn't their own creation. But the rest of it sure sounds like it's an
cynical.
anti-church.
Yeah.
Church, systematic church.
Yeah.
Like anti the religious system. You know, and I think a lot of their other songs lean to that too.
And that's why I think I what's the word when you transpose your ideas onto somebody when they're not true? I don't know.
I will figure. I'm not even sure I know what transpose means.
Maybe I probably used the wrong word there too. When you have an idea of somebody, but it's not true, but your filter is skewed based on your experiences. Anyway, I think I was doing that to them because I felt they were pretty cynical about some things, and so I took that belief and I transposed it onto that song, and but now. I think maybe it might be more uplifting of a song than I originally thought it was. But it's all your mind. It's all the stage you're in or whatever, that the way that songs hit you. So who knows? But I want to listen to it again now.
Still my favorite 21 Pilots song.
It's a good song.
Hands down my favorite 21 Pilots song.
It's a good song. I like Clear a lot.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one,
really
too.
That's a really good one. Yeah. That's probably my other favorite one.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was the Wallflowers. That was the first song that I
that was a good song.
Really listened to the lyrics, and I was like really impacted by that. And
what's the meaning behind the song? Do you know?
Suicide, I think.
Oh, is it a suicide song?
Awareness. Okay. Well, yeah, because he says she hit the window ledge, or she hit the end. It's just her window ledge, and there's a funeral for her, and I don't know. Yeah, it's just the lyrics really hit me in that way, that suicide was the message in that song.
Right.
And how hard it is to get through life. I mean, we're all getting through life with one headlight on, and we're broken. And don't end your life just because there's all of us are out there. I wasn't contemplating suicide or anything.
Right. But at that age, 12 or 13, that's when life's problems really kind of start to creep in, and you start dealing with emotions and school and that kind of thing. So.
Yeah, I was always a pretty happy kid. I didn't have any issues with that growing up at all. I was too oblivious to care about anything really except boys. I was very If I could go back in time, I would do sports and not focus on that.
Well, that's good though, because I hear you're talking to Addie about that topic, so hopefully you're able to convey some of that to her.
Yeah. We have such good talks. She's such a cool kid.
Yeah, she scares me.
She does.
She scares me just because she's
a good kid.
She's a good kid.
Yeah.
But she's smart. Yeah. And it's frightening. Like she and it's been from early on. Like just the way she views things. And I mean, I say this about a lot of kids in our family, and maybe I'm biased, but I mean, I've talked to you about some of your boys and just some of the things you tell me, and I'm like, they're just unique.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what it is, and it can be good or bad depending on what happens because of it, right? But it's just but anyway, so I'm glad that you've been through those life experiences and you're able to talk to her.
Edited, very edited.
Right. Well, I would hope so.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Very.
I just mean as someone who just says what you just said. If I could go back in time, so I mean that and that's good, because that's the kind of person that knows better. Now you don't know better when you're 13, 14, 15. It's just I didn't either. None of us do.
I didn't either when I was that age. But I wish I'd had somebody to talk to me about what's really important. That stuff doesn't matter. That looks are not something that you should focus on. And I wish, because now, like, gosh, this whole deconstruction phase of my identity is like so painful. Yeah. And I didn't even know how much I held on to vanity. I didn't know that. I thought I was like super chill in that area. I didn't even care because my mom was so worried about it. And compared to her, I would like roll my eyes at her and, none of that matters, Mom. And you're so cute. You don't even need to worry about that stuff. She was so focused on her looks that it almost did the opposite effect.
Well, it's almost kind of it's almost ingrained. I shouldn't say ingrained. I don't think it's from birth. But I think because of the world we live in, it's thrust upon young girls at an early age to where, and I've talked about this with other people before too, how the girls that are post a picture of themselves on Facebook or whatever, doing the duck face, which is always my favorite look,
gosh.
But they do that and then they get, 999 comments. Oh, you're so pretty. You're so beautiful. I love you. Blah, 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 blah. One person says something like, ew. And that destroys that girl's entire life.
Yeah.
1 out of 1,000 people has one bad thing to say about her looks, and it destroys her. Right. So I mean, it's really telling to where we're at. To where compliments don't seem to mean as much as the insult does. You know what I'm saying? Like the insult just packs the punch. In such a way.
Yeah.
To where, I mean, and guys deal with it too, obviously, but I think for most guys, it's easier for us to let that roll off our backs, especially when it comes to our looks, because we're not as concerned. But for us, it's like there's prideful things that we deal with. Like if someone says something about, I don't know, like back when we were kids, it was like, oh, being a sissy. Or so, you're not strong enough. Or that was kind of like, that made you feel bad. I don't measure up to these other strong guys, or whatever.
Right.
But even then, I don't think for most guys that one comment would put us into a downward spiral like it does some girls.
I agree.
So, but so Wallflowers is. I don't think they ever had any other real big hits, did they?
I wouldn't say I'm a follower of a person or a band. I'm a follower of lyrics.
Okay.
I love certain lyrics, and I don't even know what the names of the songs are a lot of the time. I just follow whatever sound I like and whatever lyrics are good.
Okay.
So, as far as people that are bands that are my favorite or people, that's really hard for me to find. So I had to go with logic instead of my feelings about it. So if I bought an album, that's obviously I consider that I like that person.
Right.
So Jack Johnson is probably.
Oh yeah.
I liked all of his albums, all of them. They were excellent. So
lyrically or musically or both?
Okay. They had to be lyrically good because I don't do something if it's just sounds good.
Right.
I don't think there's one song that's in my playlist that I like for the sound.
Really?
Yeah.
So you're strictly a lyrical person mostly.
Well, it has to be both. It has to sound good and the lyrics have to be good.
But lyrics are far more important.
Oh,
to you.
far more important.
Okay.
If a song sounds cool, okay, maybe there's a couple like when the dubstep era came in. There were really cool songs that I liked.
Kind of dancey, made you want to
No,
get into
dubstep is like I think it means bass. Like the bass beats were really cool in that.
Okay.
So I don't know, like trying to think of one of the songs, but I can't.
Well, there was that group Capital Kings, which was I think dubstep, right? Maybe. And I get this all wrong. I don't know music. I don't know genres very well. I'm just like, I like that song. It's awesome. People say, what kind of music do you like? Good music.
Yeah.
That's my favorite genre. Good.
Yeah.
And that can fall in anywhere.
Yeah.
From death metal to hip hop. I mean,
Yeah.
it just depends on the song, So
So yeah, I really liked that.
So you have any? So Jack Johnson, you when you were getting ready for your wedding, you had originally asked if I would play a song for you by him, not sing it, just play an acoustic guitar while you were walking down the aisle? Okay, and then we opted not to do that. But what was that song?
Angel by
It's
Jack
called
Johnson.
Angel.
Yeah.
Is it an original or is it a cover? Do you know?
I believe it's an original.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not real familiar. I've heard some of his stuff, and I know that Paul Wright, sounds a lot like him. And I like Paul Wright a lot.
He does.
And obviously there's some, I don't call it copying, but I think we're all influenced in some way, right?
Yes,
So
definitely. Yeah. I have my little song list here that I wrote down last night.
Oh, good. Came prepared.
I did. Because I wouldn't be able, my recall memory,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I deal with that too.
It's really, really bad. So, so before I became a Christian, or before I was influenced by that stuff, I loved that one song by the Wallflowers. I love Bobby V, it's oldies.
Oh, yeah. It's like VEE, right?
VEE, yeah. Aerosmith, Queen, Guns N' Roses.
Good ones.
Extreme, but just the one song. More Than Words.
What about Wholehearted?
I don't know. I've never heard it.
Oh, that was the other really popular single.
Really?
Yeah.
Sam Cooke, which is another
old school
oldies. The Foundations. Oh, the Foundations are so
Is that
good.
also back then?
Yeah, Supremes, Frankie Valli, and the Four Seasons. It's like
this is
number
all your
one.
mom's music.
Oh God,
Yeah.
I love them.
Yeah. Did you see the movie?
No,
I didn't either.
I don't.
I heard it was good though.
I don't watch movies really.
Yeah. They made a movie.
I think I do. Yeah.
Frankie Valli. What was it called? Something Baby or no?
No. It looked really good though.
But that's the song, right? Big Girls Don't Cry. That's them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember the name. Anyway, I heard it was good, but I didn't see that.
It's probably good. Actually, the last movie I watched was the one about Queen.
Oh, Freddie Mercury.
Freddie Mercury, that was really good.
I've heard that. I haven't seen that yet either. And I haven't seen the Elton John one either. I heard that was really good. And I love those kind of movies.
Yeah.
I love true stories, even though I know it's not all true. Obviously, they change stuff,
they
but
sensationalize
I love
things,
that, especially when dealing with musical artists. I love it.
Yeah.
I love reading books on that stuff, biographies of like musicians and stuff, and hearing how they grew up and how they came into that, and
their stories.
Even more so, like if artists will ever do this, most of them won't because they're lame. But when they actually tell you, this is what was going on in my life when I wrote that song. Here's what it means. Here's what the lyrics mean and why I wrote it, because I was dealing with this or I was doing that. And most times they say things like, we just want our audience to come up with their own interpretations of these songs. And I was like, oh, that's all fine and good.
Yeah.
But then tell us.
I know.
Tell us what you meant,
Yeah.
And like Tornado Pilots is a perfect example of that, you know? Because there's so much there.
Yeah.
I mean, they've constructed this entire world of stuff and characters in it. And there's a whole story. I mean, they could make a movie based on that, But I'm sitting there going, I don't know what any of it means,
I think that they're secretive about it because they're luring people in to minister to them, I think. And they don't want to put a label on it or say, yeah, we wrote this for the Lord. We wrote this as worship. We wrote this because they don't want to drive people away that they're trying to lure in. And like in Clear, they say, which is better, standing on the street corner, yelling about the word of God?
Oh, yeah.
Or cleverly masking your word. What's
Right.
better? So that's what they're doing. They're cleverly masking his word.
Right.
So that but they don't know.
Right.
They don't know what's better. Like
Right.
they admit it.
But those who know.
Yeah.
And they know that.
Yeah.
Because they make comments. Tyler will make comments all the time about how this is for those who understand or whatever, and he'll say that stuff in shows, and it's like
for
he
those
knows
who have ears to listen.
Right.
Hear, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it's just you can see it. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean they're not so like obvious about it. Like they don't sit there and sing about Jesus in all their songs like by name.
Yeah.
Right, but some of those songs, I remember when Vessel came out. I think Stephanie and I were having this conversation about it because she's the one who turned me on to that whole album. I had heard Guns for Hands on the radio.
Yeah.
And then I think she had gotten the whole album. She's like, have you heard the whole album? I was like, no. And then she goes, I recommend Migraine, I recommend Car Radio and all this stuff. And I started listening to like Migraine.
Yeah.
And I'm going, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
This is the most Christian lyrics. I like truly biblical. I mean, I'm not talking about your typical worship song, Jesus is my homeboy, Jesus
Right.
is wonderful, I love him so much.
Yeah.
We're talking about in the trenches of deep, dark. This is the struggle.
Yeah.
Right? This is what I'm dealing with as a Christian. This is like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's just like, so it was so deep. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is amazing.
Yeah.
But they're able to do it in a way to where most people, when I talked about 21 Pilots, oh yeah, I like 21 Pilots. Did you know they're a Christian band? What?
Yeah.
It's like people have no idea.
No idea.
And in my mind, they're the most Christian band out there as far as their lyrics go, you know, but anyway.
Yeah, no, it's good. They're really good.
Yeah. So you mentioned Queen and Aerosmith. Those are big favorites of mine too.
Yeah, big favorites.
Aerosmith is awesome just because they're still around.
I know.
They've been around since like the 70s and they
Yeah.
still rock and they still sell out shows. And I mean, there's something to be said about that. So.
Yeah, and then Nirvana kind of. I think I liked Nirvana because it was like I don't know, maybe just to be cool. I don't even know. But I know they were a big part. Like the music videos, I think, were more impactful to me than the actual songs. So the MTV era in the 90s was very impactful on me. Like there were songs that I liked like Crazy from Aerosmith that impacted me more than I think the actual song.
Right.
Or gave some more influence to the song than it would have if I had just listened to the song. So
Well, that back then with the Get a Grip album, they had all those videos like with Alicia Silverstone and Liv Tyler, and they had all those different ones. Like Amazing, Crazy.
Yeah. Angel, they had one called
Angel.
too. I don't know if there was a video for that one, but
yeah.
So that was very impactful. Unwritten Law was a
Oh,
huge
shut
one
up!
for me. Yeah, Fall Out Boy was a huge
Really?
one for me.
Okay, well, let's stop on Unwritten Law for a minute. I didn't know. That's interesting. So they're from Poway, which is down in San Diego area,
Oh, really?
where Bethany and I used to hang out.
Cool.
Blink-182 is from there also.
Oh, no way.
Yeah,
That was another one
In
for
fact,
me.
Bethany and I were watching. You remember that show Cribs, MTV Cribs? So we were watching it one time, and they're talking. And I think it was Tom and Mark were in the car, and they were going, "Oh, this is our favorite Taco Bell," and they're going through the drive-through this Taco Bell. Me and Bethany are like, oh crap, that's a Taco Bell we go to, you know,
cool.
because that was before so it was just like, it was really, really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, Unwritten Law is a band that a lot of people don't really, I haven't heard a lot of people that know about that band. Was it with the self-titled album that
All of them. Yeah, I
Okay.
liked the one after that too. I think it was the one after that.
Elva? I think Elva came out after the self-titled. The self-titled had like Kaylin and Teenage Suicide and...
That's the one I really liked.
Yeah. What was the first song on there? Harmonic. That song Harmonic, that was a good one too. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I
that's
really
a good
liked
album.
them. It's a good. And then they had a newer one out too that I really liked. That I can't remember now. I think that one was on the radio.
Oh, okay. Like a new single, like recently?
Yeah. No, like in the last 15, 20 years maybe.
Okay. Yeah.
But I really liked them. And then I liked Brad Paisley, Thomas Rhett as country. Like those are the two only country people that I really, really love. Thomas Rhett is so good.
I don't know if I know any of his music.
It's so good. I love his lyrics. He's very lyrically talented.
Okay.
So it's clever. And it's
really? Okay.
Yeah, lyrically clever.
You don't usually think that about country music. Usually it's just, either girl troubles or beer drinking.
Yeah, no. Thomas Rhett his songs are really cute. Oh, and he has like a doo-wop song.
Oh, really?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
And I just love. He's probably my favorite country artist that I've ever claimed as someone that I like.
Nice.
I am not a huge. I would say I am a huge country fan as far as the emotional pull that some of the lyrics have, but not a person follower in that.
Yeah, I'm not big on the country. The country I like is more the older stuff. Hank Williams.
Oh, that's Sean
Johnny
too.
Cash. Yeah. I mean, that's my favorite, but there are some that I do appreciate that are. I really like Josh Turner. I don't know if you ever heard him.
Yeah, I have.
He's got a really deep voice. I forgot the name of that song, but he does Your Man, and he does. He just got some really, really good songs.
Yeah, he is good. He is good.
Yeah.
And then I really liked Green Day. I really loved the Eels and Sublime, and that's pretty much all I can think of.
Okay.
And I really liked. There's the one I didn't put on here, but he was very depressing. I listened to him in college a lot, or them.
Band or a singer?
It's a band, I think. I'm gonna have
depressing, huh? Nine Inch Nails?
No,
Marilyn Manson?
Total emo, like.
Oh, emo.
Well, maybe not emo. I don't know. Because emo, you think.
Fall Out Boy? My Chemical Romance?
No, but they're good too. But I didn't really cling on to anything that they did. Smashing Pumpkins were really good.
Oh,
too.
yeah.
90s. I just put 90s because there's so many.
It's the best.
Morissette. Like, I love.
It's the best era of music. And anybody who disagrees is just flat out wrong.
Can just leave. It really was great. But there's so much nostalgia.
Yeah.
Because of MTV. I feel like
right.
So many of us clung to that identity, and it just really.
Yeah. Well, now I got to know who you're talking about because that's going to bother me.
I know.
Can you think of a song
I'm
or
trying
lyrics?
to think of a song. Okay, let's see. Blue October.
That's the band?
Blue October.
I've never even heard of that band.
Oh.
Blue October?
They're so good.
Oh, wow.
I want to play you a song, but you're totally going to edit that out.
I have to.
Okay.
For copyright purposes.
Oh, yeah. Blue
October. And that's a 90s band? Check some of their stuff out now.
It's really depressing stuff.
Yeah.
But I was with Sean when I started, so it's not like I was, relating with the lyrics.
Right.
I just liked the lyrics a lot, and I was always drawn to depressing music.
Me too.
I don't know
in
why.
a sense. And it's funny how me and Danny are opposites that way to this day.
He's just a ball of sunshine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yes and no, right? I mean, he wants to be all the time. You know what I'm saying? And I think ultimately everybody kind of does, but I mean, there comes a point where you just kind of have to embrace sadness, and you have to embrace that stuff.
It's a shock for people who are always trying to stay above water.
Correct. And like I said, I think we all want to be there. We all want to be walking on sunshine 24/7, but it's just not reality. And you can't continue just to keep denying those things your whole life, you know, so it's better just to accept them, especially from a Christian worldview.
Yeah.
And you just think, okay, yeah, with the Lord, I'm going to have good times and I'm going to have hard times.
Right.
It's just the way it is, you know? So go back to the last couple you said, Green Day. Can you elaborate on that one? Was there a certain era that you first came into with them? Because they've got a huge catalog.
Oh,
They've been around since the late 80s. And
I think just the 90s, just their 90s stuff.
So Dookie came out. Was that your introduction to them? Okay.
Yeah, so just that and nothing after that. I didn't really.
Okay, so you didn't get in American Idiot or.
I think I did a little.
What's that? 21st Century Breakdown. Kind of those ones.
No, definitely not that. I don't know anything about that one.
Okay.
But I probably Dookie was the one that I really liked.
Yeah.
And then nothing really after that.
Well, that was their big mainstream album, right? That was their third album, but that was the one where they blew up. That was the mainstream.
All over
I think Longview was the first song that came out. That one, the video where he's sitting in I sit around and watch the phone. Yeah, that one. And it's just such a cool song. I remember the first time I saw that on MTV, I was like, what is this? Yeah. And I was just kind of coming into the whole punk thing at that time. And that's kind of when it started blowing up. You know, I just started listening to Bad Religion and Pennywise and some of these other ones. And then bands like Green Day and The Offspring were taking this punk thing to the mainstream. And it was it was getting big, you know, and, because around that same time is when Come Out and Play came out by Offspring. And it was just whoa, you know.
That really took hold on a lot of people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I mean, Green Day to me is one of those bands that's very, although they've changed so much, so much in their sound. And even what their last album was, was just so different.
Really?
But good. I mean, it's just not the kind of the snotty pop punk you're used to
Yeah.
from Dookie and Insomniac and some of those ones. And
Yeah.
but great songs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even some of the later ones is like, man, there's some good songs on here.
Oh, wow.
But I'm like you. I actually even prefer. I think Kerplunk is probably my favorite.
And
album,
that's a good one.
which
too.
that came out before Dookie and before
Okay.
they really, you know. But
Yeah,
it became popular after Dookie came out because then people started going into their back catalog and, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's what I do. If I hear a first album, it's like you think it's their first album, you're like, oh wait, they had a few before this. I want to listen to those too. You know.
Yeah, I do that
So-
too. I liked All because of you.
The band All.
Yeah.
Okay.
They were good. I
Oh, that's
liked
right.
a
The
couple of their-
Pummel album. I think I showed with you, right?
And Breaking Things.
Oh, Breaking Things. Yeah.
I liked that one
That
too.
was the one before that. But like Pummel had like Miranda.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Oh.
That's my favorite All album.
I haven't
is-
listened
is-
to them
is
in
Pummel.
so long.
Yeah.
Man, I don't. Yeah, I don't listen to anything anymore.
Yeah.
Except Christian music.
You know the story behind that band, right?
No.
Have you heard of the Descendnents?
Yes.
So the Descendnents, lead singer is Milo Ackerman, and their best album, famous album, is called Milo Goes to College, and it's called that because he went to college and he left the band. Well, the rest of the band kept writing songs, but they got a new singer, and they had a few different singers before they got to Chad Price, which is the one who sings on Pummel and Breaking Things. But they had, I think Dave Smalley was one. I think he might have been the first singer, and then he went on to start Down by Law and Dag Nasty and some of these other bands. But anyway, so that All is the Descendants with a different singer.
Oh wow.
So that's why musically it sounds like the Descendants, but the singer's different.
Oh, wow.
Right? Because it's not Milo. And then later on, Milo came back, like in I forgot when, but they released a bunch of albums, and now they're still releasing albums.
Wow.
And there was one that was really cool. I forgot the name of the album, but it was a double album, and it had 2 live shows, one with All and one with Descendants. And they actually covered a couple songs from each other, which was kind of cool to hear, like a
neat.
Descendants song being sung by Chad Price and a
That is
All
really
song being
cool.
sung by Milo.
And
So,
it shows you it wasn't like a bad breakup. It
no,
was like a
not at all.
healthy-
It was more like, hey
good.
guys, I want to. And he's like some like, I'm probably gonna get this wrong, but he's like got 2 PhDs or something in
Wow.
biochemistry or something. I mean,
Yeah.
he's like some like professor, like smart,
I
which is a
feel
lot
like-
of punk
yeah,
guys
I
are
feel
like
like-
that.
yeah.
Yeah, like Greg Graffin of Bad Religion is the same way. He's got like a double doctorate or something. He teaches
Yeah.
classes and
Wow.
colleges and stuff. It's just like
I feel like that sort of mind is what produces
Right.
good music like that.
Yeah.
I don't know, in a lot of ways. Like an artist has
Yeah.
a very intelligent mind
right.
with a PhD or without one, you know.
Right. Well, that's when you get intelligent, is when you get a PhD. You can be just stupid as soon
You
as you
can't
get
have
that
any
piece of
opinions
paper.
on anything
Unless you have
a
one.
PhD.
Right.
Well, are you a doctor?
Yeah. You know, I even had somebody say that to me one time at work, and we were talking. I want to say it was a very simple question. This was early on in my Christian walk, so I was much more preachy back then, where I was more prone to jump into a conversation with somebody just based on something that they said that had nothing to do with it necessarily.
Yeah.
Even to where now I'm a little more cautious, and I kind of trying to
Yeah.
choose who I'm talking to and stuff. But I think they had said something like they were Catholic or something, and I had said by birth or by choice. You know, I didn't mean it derogatory. It's a question I usually
They were
ask.
ready for a fight.
Well, and then she got upset, and then she said something like, "Well, do you have a PhD?" No, I don't. Well, then you shouldn't be talking about this stuff. And I'm like, okay, all right then, you know. But and I thought that was such a weird question to ask, you know. But
She probably didn't understand your question.
maybe not.
Maybe she took it like
Maybe not. You know, I may have elaborated. I don't remember if I did or not. I'm, you know, because you know what I mean by that.
Yes.
Because a lot of people that I know are just.
Are you Catholic because
Yes.
you chose it, or were you just raised in it?
Right. Is it like almost like an ethnicity?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm Italian.
Right.
And I'm Catholic. You know, it's like, well, a religion is something kind of more a person makes an individual decision to follow, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, yes, we're some of us are brought up that way.
Yeah.
But we all have to get to that point where we decide, okay, this is my parents' belief system, but do I want to adopt that for myself, or do I want to go a different direction, or
Right.
what, you know? So, and that's why I ask the question when I'm talking to somebody who's Catholic specifically, because then I know and this is probably stereotypical, but then I know if they're really steeped in it to the point that they're willing to have a good conversation.
Yeah.
Or is it more like, I don't know anything about this. It's just who I am because I was born this way.
Yeah.
You know, no different than asking somebody if they're Italian. Say, well, tell me about, why are you Italian? Well, what do you mean, why am I Italian? I'm Italian because my parents were Italian, and that's
Yeah.
just the way I was born. You know, I don't have any say-so.
Right.
So, but anyway.
Yeah, that's funny.
So either right before or right after Green Day, you said another one.
Sublime. Eels.
Sublime. Eels, I don't know. I remember, okay, I'm sure I'd know the song if I heard it, and I remember the album with the girl with the big eyes.
Yeah.
And I have that image burned in my memory. But what's the song? Tell me a song.
Well, I first heard them while watching Shrek. And so...
The first Shrek?
Yeah.
Oh, we just watched it like last week.
And I really liked the song, the My Beloved Monster and Me.
I don't even remember that song from the movie I just watched last week.
Well, I'll show you the
horrible.
intro. Is this? Do you hate this? Do you not want me
What?
to do this? Would you rather me not?
What, play songs?
Yeah.
No, go for it.
Okay.
There's no rules here, Diana.
Okay. Well, I want to make your editing as easy as possible.
Yeah, I listened through the whole thing over again anyway, so.
You'll know, because all they play is the beginning. It's such a cute song. So
Is that like their main single, though? Or I know they have one I would know other than that.
I don't know if that's their main single. Novocaine.
That's the name. I know that name.
Yeah.
I bet you I know that. So that's another band I should look into a little more.
I mean, yeah, I loved. I don't know. They're just different, and I loved them.
Are they British?
No idea.
Almost sounds like he's got
I
an
never
accent.
do that. And that's the only album I ever listened to. I get stuck on
Okay.
an album and then I ADD to something different. I never dive down deep. And then of course 21 Pilots was huge for me because they were so different.
Right.
And so just lyrically and musically pleasing to my ears. Mm-hmm. That I just dove in with I love all their albums.
Well, can you go back to the beginning of that band then? Like, what was your first? Do you remember what the first song you heard was, or?
Oh yeah, Guns for Hands.
Okay, me too.
And I was obsessed.
That was the first one I heard too.
And the way they change the sounds was like, I loved it.
And it just stops, and then it goes right into the rap part, and then it goes right back into the thing. It's like, whoa!
It was so cool how they maneuvered in and out of different beats, and I just fell in love with that. And their lyrics, of course, are genius and awesome.
Right.
And so I went through all their albums, and that's the first band I ever did that with, actually.
Okay.
Like, went backwards and forwards and everything in between. I did all of it, and I've loved everything they've put out. Mm-hmm. There's not one song that I skip when I listen to their stuff.
Right.
Because it's all worthy of
Yeah.
listening to. Probably the only one.
Uh-oh, here it comes.
The only one that I'm not crazy about is Lane Boy.
Oh, really?
That's the only song that I'm like,
Oh.
So,
see, I really like that one.
yeah.
There's a few that I could do without.
Probably all the ones I love.
Probably. There's none of them that I'm like, oh, that song sucks. Right? Like, all of them are good to me. But there's some like, eh.
Which one?
You know, like you hear an album like Blurry Face, and you got a song like, I don't know. See, I hate to say this because I do like the song.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like Tear My Heart. It's not
the dun-dun-dun-dun-dun.
Yeah,
Is
she's
it that one?
tearing my heart. Yeah, it's like it just doesn't seem to fit. You know, same with like House of Gold on I don't know. It's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a good song, but you compare it to ones like on Vessel, like you compare it to like Migraine or Ode to Sleep or
the
Guns
depth
for Hands.
of those songs are very.
Well, even the sound of it.
Yeah.
Like it's just the beat and the you know, the melody and all that is just so much better than, you know, the kind of the ukulele songs that they do.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. What did you think of the Scale and Icy album, the newest one?
I love it.
Do you put it on par as ones like Blurry Face and Trench and those other ones, though, or Vessel? It's very different sounding.
I do. I give them freedom, I guess, in my mind, to explore different things. And they're such good artists that I feel like they do well in anything they kind of like, they flourish in it. So it's different.
Right.
But I do think it's on par. It's just a different course.
Right.
Like it's,
Right.
So I do. As far as like relating to it, I don't relate to it as much.
Right. Me neither.
I don't hear the spiritual significance in those songs as much.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think I don't base if it's on par with the other stuff on those things. So I guess.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, I guess when I say on par, I agree with you. I think
Yeah.
that especially if you put yourself in their shoes, you don't want to be like, pigeonholed into the same thing. You want to be able to branch out and try new things and expand your horizons with music.
Mm-hmm.
I totally would. Mm-hmm. I feel bad for bands that are like trying to create something new, and then they go and they try to play the new songs live, and the crowd's like, no, play these songs. And they're like, we've been playing these songs over and over for 15 years. We're sick of these songs.
Yeah.
We play a different city every night for 6 months, and we play these same songs.
Yeah.
It's like, I get it. But to the fan, it could be like, this is the first and only time I'm ever going to see them. Yeah. So I want to see them play this big hit that they have, So I see both sides of it. So anyway, what I'm saying is I understand. I can agree with you that as far as letting them expand their horizons is awesome, and I think it's good that they're doing that. But from a listener perspective, I listen to Scaled and Icy, and to me, it's on a whole different. It's not that I feel like I'm listening to a different band because it's all there. Like you can tell it's the same band, obviously. But it's such a different style that it doesn't hit me the same way as like Trench or even Trench was different.
Yeah.
Like Trench came out and it was way different than Blurry Face and Vessel and kind of that sound that they were building on.
It was. Trench was way different.
But it was great.
Yeah.
In a like piercing to my soul kind of way, like some of those songs, like Neon Gravestones and some of those songs that just, or Nico and the Niners, and it's like, oh my gosh, like they're just. Oh,
I know.
Bandito is another one. Just like it just gives me chills listening to it. And then I listen to Scaled and Icy, and I don't get those feelings. What I get is
brighter.
I want to dance.
Yeah.
And I don't dance. Right? I just don't dance, but I find it just gets me doing this, and I'm starting moving. Like But I mean, it's just upbeat, and it's very 80s sounding, and it's musically it's great. And I think if I would have heard that album without hearing all the prior ones, I still would have bought it.
Yeah.
I would have been like, this is good. I like this.
Yeah.
But since I have all that back catalog to compare it to, it's not my favorite.
Right. I find myself listening to that album more than any of the other albums.
Really? Okay.
I can't put my finger on it. I don't know what it is because it's not like I relate to that stuff more. I relate less to the other stuff too. I've kind of grown out of it, I think. I've grown out of this stage where I'm questioning God, and now I'm in this stage where I just want to worship and I just want to hear songs that glorify him, and those are the songs that give me chills now, that's kind of my basis for what I feel like listening to, and right now the songs that give me chills are the ones that really glorify him, and like
Christian radio, or are you talking more like songs you sing at church?
Like hymns.
Okay.
And songs on the radio.
Okay.
Both, mostly songs on the radio, but I don't listen to the radio, so it's like songs that have come up on my playlist for like suggestions on Spotify.
Right.
Or but that's the radio. That's what you mean, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, basically. I mean, I don't do all that Spotify, and I don't do all that stuff just because I don't know how, and people have tried to do it for me, and it just doesn't work. And I've just come to the point that like the Lord doesn't want me to have Spotify.
Sure.
So I mean, I do just listen to radio, not very often. Generally, I'll just because I have my entire CD catalog on my phone, so I just put on a playlist, and I have millions of playlists of different moods that I'm in or whatever, and I'll just put on something from there. But I guess radio's. I guess it's just because to me there's a big difference, especially today's Christian radio. There's a big difference between what's being played on there for the most part. Every once in a while there'd be a shining lyrical song that to me really encapsulates a worship experience, as opposed to just kind of I don't know, it's just so phony to me, a lot of the quote unquote worship music that's out there. So I guess I was just asking, is there a distinction between that kind of thing and when you're at church? Because I know at church where you go, it's all hymns, which I appreciate hymns more than a lot of traditional just lyrically.
Yeah.
I think I like the sound maybe of some more contemporary music.
Yeah,
but
so I try to find hymns that have been made into contemporary. Because I don't really like the men in robes sound. I don't know how to... Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I try to find, like, Citizens was a band that I really liked. They did at least one hymn that I loved.
Right.
How Great Thou Art, they did.
Oh, that's a good one.
They did so good with that song. So there's some of my identity in there as like a 90s grunge whatever, and then it's made into
right.
So it really like gets me.
Right.
I love it.
So what you're saying is if like like Pearl Jam did a hymns album, you'd be all over it.
I would be all over it. And I would not just blindly love it because it's Pearl Jam.
Right.
That's another one. There's so many I didn't say.
Pearl
Just
Jam's
90s,
great.
all 90s pretty much.
Well, I'm excited you just said 90s because that's I get into that debate with people. I even say I think 91 is the greatest musical year.
Like who came out then?
Well, just all the albums that came out that year. Pearl Jam 10, Alice in Chains, Dirt. I mean, this is all grunge stuff, of course. Metallica's Black Album came out that year. But then there's even like some, I mean, it just runs the gamut for me. Like you look at even like things like Genesis and like Phil Collins and that stuff that came out in 91. Some of the hip hop stuff that came out in 91. It's just great.
Yeah.
Like you Google it sometimes. Just put albums that came out in 1991. And you'll just read through it. Like Nevermind, Nirvana's Nevermind came out in 91. Like all these just hit, like life-changing albums came out in that year. But ultimately 90s to me is the best. But and I've talked about this before because it tends. It's interesting because are you 8 years younger than me?
I am 38.
7 years younger than me.
Okay.
So we're pretty close as far as eras go. But I mean, I always wonder, like, if a person, when they say something like the 90s is the best era of music, is that because of the age we were and the things we were dealing with and that section of life, to where somebody I know that might be in their 70s now would say, oh, the 60s was obviously the best musical era of all time. And I would agree and say, well, the 60s had some good music too, but the 90s is where it's at. And they'll be like, 90s music sucks.
Yes.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yes, it sucked. Cool. I think, going back to my comment about MTV, I think MTV infiltrated our eyes and it impacted us. I mean, it really impacted me just seeing these music videos and watching them and putting so much more life to the songs that it wasn't there before. So
right.
I really do think, for me, I think it was MTV, and just knowing how sensitive our minds are to what we see and what we hear. Really, we just don't realize it as much.
Right.
I think it was the eruption of MTV in our houses that made us love that.
Oh, I'm sure it played a big part. I really do.
So,
but that was around in the 80s too. In fact, I want to say it was late 70s.
That's true. And if you
was
look
the
at
first MTV music video.
Yeah. What was the first MTV?
Wasn't it? I think it was Video Killed the Radio Star.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Which is totally ironic.
Yeah,
because that's the whole point of the song, right? Is that
got chills? Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah.
I think that was the first one. I might be wrong, but I don't remember who sang it.
But that won't be fun.
Huh? I don't remember who that was now. But anyway, yeah. So now that you're as you're walking with the Lord more, and you more embrace more spiritual lyrics that impact you in that way.
I do, and I actually I've been, I think, ministered to by the Lord to not listen to other stuff. So although I still love it and I still want to, I choose not to, because there's been so many things, like a series of events that have led me to that. And one belief that I always used to roll my eyes at, and I still do in a way. I don't fully believe it in the way that it's presented in certain like charismatic churches, is the power of life and death is in the tongue. And I'm like, I would always roll my eyes at people that would make me say, like, I would say things like, oh, today's gonna suck.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, don't say that,
right.
Diana. That's your power of life and death. I'm like, I'm not a sorcerer. I
right.
cannot.
I wish my words had that much power.
I wish my words had that
I'd
much
be like,
power.
$1 million, please. Boom.
Yes.
You know?
So I would just roll my eyes at that thought. Like, okay, yes, the Lord says it. It says it in the Bible. It says that the power of life and death is on our tongues or in our mouth or whatever. I know I'm not quoting that right, but the idea is the same. But you guys, we don't have magic. We don't have that. We can't say death to you and then, and then it happened.
Thankfully. Could you imagine?
Well, okay.
I'd be dead a long time ago.
Right.
Somebody would have killed me off.
I have my roll my eyes reaction to that way of thinking has been softened because of just giving it to the Lord and asking him to, because after reading Job to prove somebody wrong, I was humbled by reading that. It's the only book I've ever read cover to cover, and I was diligently reading that to prove somebody wrong.
Oh, really?
Oh my goodness. And I was looking for the answer, and because it was about welcoming trials into our life and welcoming, and yeah, that's in there. But I got to the end and I was like, wow, because God humbles Job. Even though God says, who are you?
Yes, that's the best part of the whole book.
To be spitting out this wisdom.
Who made your tongue?
That isn't even yours to give. Like, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, Job, that you had to go through this for me.
I'm so sorry I'm benefiting off your pain.
Oh my gosh, like poor Job had to go through this just so I would read this 3,000 years later or 6,000, whatever it is. Right. And I was humbled. It changed my whole life reading that. And so that's one thing that humbled me. Like one thing that I wish we could rewind the tape now so I could find out what my original purpose for saying that was. Do you remember?
No.
I know reading Job from cover to cover humbled me in such a way that it changed me forever. And so that's one thing that made me not roll my eyes as much at that.
Oh, that's what we're talking about.
Belief, yeah.
Eye rolling as far as power in our words.
Power in our words.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. So I now use the humbling of Job as a filter for everything I come across. Like I'm very open-minded when it comes to somebody else's beliefs because I go, Lord, I don't know if I'm supposed to speak in tongues the way I'm supposed to. Like, please help me. Lead me there. Give me wisdom on that.
Right.
I don't know. I don't put my foot firm in the ground or firm in the sand or whatever the phrase is until the Lord leads me there or doesn't lead me there. Right. I have my opinions. Yeah. But what is that to the truth of God? My opinions mean nothing compared to his truth.
Yeah.
So I lay it down before him. So that was the first thing that kind of like just really opened up my heart to redefining my hard truths that I had in my life. And then I'm trying to figure out the sequence of events. I can just say them and then we can sort them out later.
Yeah, see, I have a hard time with that.
Yeah, sequence of events. So another thing that happened is I went to my osteopathic medicine doctor, and he...
Is that bones? Osteo's bones,
right? He's a chiropractor.
Okay.
Who uses his umbrella he uses that as an umbrella to encompass natural medicine too. So he does supplements and he does rehabilitation through the mind stuff, like frequencies and things like that, like really crazy stuff. And it seems to work very, very well. So one of the things I was having trouble with was fatigue. And, no blood test came back that I had anything wrong.
Right.
I went to a therapist to find out if it was like psychosomatic or if it was, an actual like something that was going on with me. So I went to him so he could analyze my blood work in a different way. And he's like, you just need to move. You don't do anything. Basically, that was my prescription. Right. And he's like, get up in the morning and do some jumping jacks. And I'm like, really though? But I'm not going to do that. I want to. I have every intention of wanting to do that. But I'm so tired and I'm in so much pain in the morning and I'm so nauseous and I'm so just everything is just it's painful.
Right.
And he's like, okay, so let me give you this. So he gave me this. I'm trying to shorten the story. He gave me this device. It's a little like Walkman size device and it has different frequencies on it. It's like sounds like Morse code kind of.
Can you hear the frequencies?
Yeah.
Okay, it's not like a dog whistle where you just
No.
Okay.
And I put them on, and you do them in the morning. It's like 10 minutes in the morning, and then there's these glasses that you put on, and they flash lights in your eyes, and these frequencies. Yeah, it's very relaxing.
Sorry.
It's very relaxing.
This is like
hokey.
Yeah.
It seems hokey, but
Yeah.
it's scientifically backed.
Sure.
There's scientific
If it works, it works,
evidence.
right?
And so I'm listening to these frequencies, and it's creating, different brain waves in your mind. And I'm like, not, kind of weirded out by it, like kind of scared. I'm trusting this doctor. I know nothing about what it's really doing to my mind.
Right.
And I'm just doing it, And I was listening then. Okay, so I'm hearing these frequencies, and it's like these beeping frequencies. And I wish I could remember the song of 21 Pilots, but I heard the same frequency in the song.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. And I was like, whoa. And I showed Sean, and he was like, whoa. And then I was like, okay, so interesting. Like, it made me just have this little tiny inkling of a cautionary, I don't know, like being cautious of what you listen to. Like, if this is scientifically proven.
Oh, this is what you were talking
Yes,
about. The
right.
power of words. This is
Yes.
now you're bringing it back. Okay,
Yes.
gotcha.
So there's power, and I don't know. I haven't come to this conclusion
Okay.
yet at this point in the story.
Like what you're listening to affects you in some way.
Yes,
That's what
in
you're
some
getting
way.
to. Okay.
Like what you hear and what you listen to affects you in some way.
Sure, which
And
I would agree with that.
Yes, so I was like, but who knows how much? Like, I haven't delved into the science or anything like that, so I don't know. But yeah, at this point, I hadn't yet. And so I was like, interesting. And I still hadn't made the connection back to power of life and death in the tongue. I didn't do that yet, but it was just really like, holy cow. Like,
Yeah.
Okay. And then 2020 happened. Like, 2020 happened first, because this was in 2021 that I went to the doctor. But the revelation that I had was within the time span of 2020 and 2023.
Okay.
So I'm looking at the TV one day, and I see, this is all connected, I promise.
Hey, go
It's
for
all
it.
connected.
Yeah, you're good.
I see a preview for this lesbian girl who wants to take her girlfriend to the prom. And it's some Netflix original movie, and it's about this lesbian who wants to go to prom. And within the middle of the preview, the screen flashes up in Vegas lights, and it says, "Praise Satan." And the movie has nothing to do with Satan. And I was like, what the heck did I just watch? What is that? And so I looked it up, and Netflix, we're sorry. We don't know, we just... So
like, they claimed they had no idea where that came from?
No, they claimed they knew where it was. They just put out an apology and removed the ad.
Interesting. Oh, it was an ad?
It was an ad
in the
for
middle
a
of the movie?
In the middle of I didn't watch the movie.
Oh, it was a trailer for the movie.
It was a trailer for the movie.
Okay, gotcha.
Just Netflix commercial or whatever it was. And it came through. And I was like, did I just see what I thought I saw? Like, that is so crazy.
Oh, weird.
So then I started to, see all these artists come out, and musical artists, just openly praising Satan, openly worshiping him on stage, openly denouncing Christ, openly, like the Antichrist coming through the screen through music and artistry and stuff was just overwhelming.
Is this Lil Nas X and all that stuff that was going on?
Yes,
Okay.
all of it. And even Beyonce. Beyonce and her alter egos and statements that she's made, which I don't know are truthful, but
she thanks Jesus in her liner notes of her albums. So, that's proof that she's a Christian, obviously.
No. So that really opened my eyes to, and just the media and how both sides were alarmingly manipulative and untruthful and lying. How?
I didn't say how. I said,
Oh, okay. So I don't know. I mean, I could get into that, but that would. So I saw this huge influence of Satan coming through the television and music. And then I put it back to this frequency that I heard in there, and how scientifically you can control someone's brainwaves in a subtle but big way if you're exposed to it all the time. You can control people's emotions, and you can control people's thoughts and all this stuff. And so I'm like, Satan is taking over music in a huge way, and influencing our youth and influencing us. And so based on that, I started to form this idea more solidly that we should be careful what we let into our ears, because it can manipulate us. Right. It can make us feel things that are not godly, and pull us into a thought pattern that is not of the Lord. Mm-hmm. And the battle is in our minds. I mean, that's what Satan and God are kind of battling for. So I feel like that was a fight that I don't want to fight. I don't want to have to deal with that. And then I saw this other thing recently where somebody put a thing of salt on a plate that was hooked to, it's like a metal plate. Okay. And it's hooked to like a synthesizer or just a keyboard. Okay. And the vibrations of each note can travel through the cord onto the plate.
Where the salt is.
Yes, where the salt is. And the salt is all disorganized. But as soon as he plays a note, the salt vibrates into a perfectly symmetrical pattern.
No way.
Ryan, it is so... I have to show you. I have to show you. It's so cool.
Is it so? It's a certain frequency that moves them into a certain place?
Every sound we make is made by vibrations, and those vibrations affect everything around us in some way. So this all brought everything back to this solidified my teaching that the Lord was giving me. You're not a sorcerer, but there is power in your words. Mm-hmm. There's power in your words. And it's not the kind of power that you think is sorcery, but you can send out vibrations that are not. That's why he says speak life. Speak life to people. Not death. And you can speak death out of your mouth, and it creates vibrations that are not good for us. It's not good for us to even speak them. Right. So then I learned that our vagus nerve is affected by everything we do. And when we sing, it positively affects our vagus nerve. And our vagus nerve controls our mood. It controls our heart rhythm. It controls our energy level. Like, there are so many things that our vagus nerve runs from the base of our brain all the way down our spine. Mm-hmm. So
singing is good for that, you're saying? Or bad, depending on, does it depend on what you're singing?
I think, yes.
Okay.
I think
so the words are tones. A part of it as well. Oh, just tones.
Tones. I think it's tones.
So it could be like a low guttural tone, like say like a screamo band or something. Maybe. But the lyrics are just so biblical and Christian.
I don't think.
But it's just that rah, 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 that's making like a bad vibe come out.
I think so. That's my leaning, but I don't know. I lean towards that because I think that the tones affect our brains in such a way that it can cause negative things. Like if you look at the brains of children who were yelled at, they're bad. Like the brains are affected in a very negative way, and it causes all these, things psychologically later on versus children who were spoken to softly. So I think if you go, you're such an idiot. Like,
yeah. Well, it's like dogs. People say, my dog knows what I'm saying. No, they don't know what you're saying. They don't speak English. No. They just know that you're like, hey.
Yes.
And you're like, no, don't do it. You could say something like, you're the best dog ever. Yeah. And they'd be like, oh.
Right. So I think it's more our tones that based on that idea.
Interesting.
Yes. So interesting. Salt on a metal plate.
Okay. So pause it real quick. So just so I'm clear. So they find a certain frequency and it makes a certain shape.
No. Every sound makes a shape.
Right, but each sound makes a different shape. Yes. Is my point. So if let's say they zero in on, let's say that image that was just there, or whatever that design was that was on there with the salt. Whenever let's say they know that exact frequency, as soon as they turn into that, it's going to always go right back to that exact same picture.
Yep.
And to say you had a list of 10 of them, and then you said, okay, now I'm going to go to this frequency. Boom, it's going to change right into that other picture.
Yep.
Wow.
Yes.
That's really cool.
So it's really cool. So then I thought, gosh, our chemicals inside of our body, those vibrations, and then 21 Pilots sings about it too.
What are they? Which song?
Venom on my tongue, dependent at times, poisonous vibrations. Venom on my tongue, dependent at times. So they talk about it too, how like lyrics, and he has a weapon he has a weapon in his with his quill, or what does he say, or his pen?
Attic with a pen.
Yeah. Like he talks about it all the time. So not that he's God. Yeah. But it's like a thing, it's not just me. Right. It's this known thing that vibrations come out of our mouths, and they are important. It is important to control those vibrations, and God tells us over and over and over again to think about things that are good, to speak about things that are righteous, it's not just because it's sinful. It's because it's good for the way he made us. It's good for our physical body.
Right.
That he cares about too.
Sure.
And so...
But even things like good and bad are subjective.
Yes. Right.
I mean, you and I know that if we go to the scriptures, we say, okay, well, this says this is good, this says this is bad. That's very honed in.
Yeah.
But to a non-religious person or someone who doesn't believe in God or the Bible, they're just like, oh, I think this is good.
Yeah.
Because it makes me happy.
Right. That's their basis.
Saying? Right.
Yes.
Right.
So I mean good and spiritually good, but also good for us. Like we benefit when we set our eyes on the kingdom. We benefit not just in spiritual ways. I mean, a lot of times we benefit by experiencing peace in our body and peace in our life. And I really do think that he says those things, and it's scientifically getting proven now some of the reasons why we should speak life and not death. And so I'm being softened in that idea, but the distinction between the two beliefs is also becoming more apparent. The distinction between what that really means. It means I feel like a much more subtle meaning than bam, you're a rabbit. Like you can't make
or the people that think that they go around and they point at things and say in Jesus' name, like that.
Yeah.
Like there's some magical formula that you can just get the Lord to do whatever you want him to do.
Yeah.
But see, again, that's putting the power back in the people's hands.
Yeah.
To where I guess kind of what you're saying is there is some of that there, but it's not so much. Like there's two different motives behind it.
Yeah.
Right.
And I don't think we should be practicing speaking life for the benefits of it.
Right.
We should be doing it because he said to do it.
Right.
But it's neat to me when science and his word support each other.
Right. Oh, that can't be.
Really?
They're mutually exclusive. That cannot be possible.
Right? I mean, who really thinks that?
Yes. There's science and then there's God. There's no intermingling.
It's so cool. Yeah, right? I've never talked to anybody personally who doesn't believe that, but that would be hard conversation.
Well, now so before we go to the break now you got my mind going all over the place. So we're talking about a tone, welcome. With a voice. Would it be like a ooh? Would that be one frequency, and then ooh would be another frequency? Yep. So then it'd be interesting to look at words that are said. So if I say the word Jesus, what tone? Like, and you put all those tones together.
Yeah.
What images are going to come off on that plate with the sand?
Ooh, let's do it. Let's do it.
like how cool would that? Like if you could actually start making pictures out of words you were saying.
You can.
Yeah.
I think you can. Really blows my mind. That's cool.
Yeah.
I was told I'm going to do this experiment. My hypothesis is that it's not going to make a difference. But somebody said you can cook some rice, right? Put it in 2 jars, like that, clear jars. Put the lid on. Keep the lid on the whole experiment. Put them both on the counter in the same spot. But every day, take one far away from the other one as you can and speak not nice things to it. Put it back.
This is like the plants thing.
Take the other one into another room and speak nice stuff to it. And put it back.
Like what kind of nice stuff are you going to speak to rice?
You're so soft and fluffy and beautiful. And
Can't wait to put soy sauce on you later.
That's my feeling. Yeah. So I am so excited to do that experiment because over and over and over again, I have heard from, the internet, so I know it's true.
Right, of course.
That the one you speak not good to will become black within 2 weeks.
You got to do it.
I'm going to do it.
You have to do it.
I'm going to do it.
And I have to see the pictures.
Yes. So that's going to be really interesting to me. And it's going to make me curl up into a ball and cry my eyes out thinking of the horrible things I've said to my children.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the horrible thing you said to the rice. I feel so bad. I hurt the rice's feelings.
No, because if this is really that impactful,
right.
and it really does create vibrations that cause decay around us,
but that's all of us, though. I mean, we could spend years doing that, going back in the past, looking at the way we've talked to people, our kids, our spouse.
I'm doing that.
Right? I mean,
it's
I'm not justifying it, but I'm just saying you're not alone there. I mean, we've all said things we wish we could take back. We've all been in a mood that made us act certain ways,
But when you can't take them back.
Right.
When you can't even tell the person sorry that you said it to because they're not here anymore.
Right.
That's when it changes you. Right. And that's when it does become an area that you're willing to, what's the word? Like meditate on, or it's a worse word than that, like sulk over or
fixate.
Fixate on. There's another word. But yeah, all those are valid. Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, it's that's very impactful. So another thing I wanted to say was cats.
Cats?
Kitty cats. This is another thing in that box of, changing my mind about vibrations and the power of words and stuff. They purr when they're sick, too. Or when they have a broken bone. Because it's been proven that frequency of the purr promotes bone growth. It activates the cells and promotes healing.
So the animal world has understanding of things we don't even have yet, just by instinct. And this will be the new thing. So we need to write this book before someone else does, so we can get a curb on the market, because we can teach that humming is the new healing. Like different frequencies of humming that you can do in order to heal yourself from different things. Could you imagine? That'd be the cure for cancer. Just hum 4 times a day in this frequency.
Somebody already did that.
Did they?
Yes.
Great.
In the 1960s.
That was a long time ago. Nobody remembers now.
Nobody remembers
we can capitalize on it.
True.
We can pretend like we came up with it.
But he found frequencies that killed cancer.
Really?
Yeah.
But that's more like coming from a machine, right? Like similar to what they do, like with making kidney stones smaller, right? They shoot frequencies in there to break them down.
Yeah.
Right.
So crazy. Wow. Yes, it blew my mind. So all of this together with, Satan taking over the sound waves coming through our radio and to our children, and to just that unveiling of his influence in social media and media in general, just radio and everything. And then this breaking down of the idea that anyway, that doesn't make sense.
Well, but okay, so it makes me start to think, and this is political too. Anyway,
we're not going to be able to break up our conversation,
which is totally fine. But this is something that I think about often, and I've said even on this podcast before multiple times, is how people, whether they claim to be political or not, or claim to be Republican, Democrat, right, left, I mean, they can make all these claims. The simple fact is, for most people, your brain and your way of thinking just tends to lean one way or the other. The way you view things, the way you view topics and things happening, and that's why you have such passion on each side of certain arguments. And from a standpoint that I'm on, it's crazy to hear the other side sometimes, like some of these things like abortion or I mean anything. There's a number of hot topic issues I could say. And you're going to find that someone where I stand on that feels very passionately about it, right? But then someone else on the other side is just as passionate.
Yeah.
And to me, their viewpoint makes no sense. It's nuts. But then to them, my viewpoint is nuts and makes no sense, right? And I don't think it's a conscious thing for either one of you to be sitting like, oh, no, I know they're right, but I refuse to admit it. I think each side really believes that they're flat out right, and they will die on that hill. That's how strongly they feel about it. So it just makes you wonder, like, when we talk about things that we're influenced by, whether it's like you were just saying, that's where I'm going with this, music or I mean, really anything. And I've had this debate before about things that influence people, right? Because every time there's a school shooting, Not every time, but whenever there's a school shooting, a lot of people go, oh, it's the violent video games. It's the violent video games. And I always say, okay, first of all, I'm not condoning violent video games. I don't allow my children to play extremely violent video games. I don't.
Right.
However, I don't believe that the violent video games is what's causing that child to go shoot up a school.
Yeah.
Because if that was true, I think the example I used was whatever was it Call of Duty or something, whatever like the number one video game of the year was, which means all the kids are playing it, right? So if all the kids are playing Call of Duty and only 2 of those kids go and shoot up a school, it just doesn't make sense to say it's the video game that's doing it. Otherwise, you'd see millions of kids shooting up schools every day.
Right.
Every day we turn on the news and see, oh, there's another school shooting, another school shooting everywhere. You don't see it. So there's more going on there, but it's fascinating what you were just talking about with the idea of what you consume as far as you're listening to and you're hearing and you're even watching or whatever, how that affects us, but it can't go all the way. So when we're looking at like right and left mindsets, politically, that could be a part of it in a sense, because if you poll like if you do polling by age group, right, the younger generation is more left-leaning than the older generation. And that's steadily right now it's steadily going that way. I see it kind of a little change happening right now, but right now that's the way it's going. If we continue on the same trajectory, then we're going to have, the Republican Party will probably be extinct. In 100 years from now. It could be maybe less. But I mean, it'd be gone. But then you see things happening right now that a lot of people, even on the left, are starting to say, this is too far. You guys, you lefties in Congress are going too far. That's nuts. Right? So now there's this other shift happening where there's fight backs and there's all these companies that are trying to go woke. Bud Light, Target, Dodger Stadium, right? You got all these things that are happening right now. Chick-fil-A, which is interesting. You think they would have learned already. But it's just blowing up in their faces. And my stance on that whole thing is like, if I was a CEO of a company, I wouldn't touch any of that. I'm not going to tell you my thoughts on that. Even if you ask me. Because look, I make beer. The beer I make, I hope it tastes good. Buy my beer because you like it. You don't need to know my political leanings.
But silence
is violence.
To the left and to the right. Silence is your compliance with whatever
Which is
side
ridiculous.
You can't.
Only if you're asked, though. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, a lot of these companies, like, nobody's boycotting McDonald's right now because of the owner of McDonald's view on transgenderism.
That's true.
You know why? Because nobody knows what the owner of McDonald's view on that is. Do you see what I'm saying? If they did, then they would split their audience down the aisle. You're going to have a bunch of people that are against that are going to say, I'm not buying McDonald's anymore. I'm a Carl's Jr. guy now. They go to another burger place. No skin off anybody's nose, but the company's going to lose money. Or the other way. Let's say you come out and you're pro-choice. Or you're pro-life. Let's say you're pro-life. So now you're going to have all of the staunch abortion activists are going to say, screw you, McDonald's. I'm gonna eat somewhere else. You see, so no matter which way you look at it, you're gonna divide your audience, and you're gonna have, half of your audience going, "Yeah, way to go, McDonald's! You rock! Way to stand up for us!" And the other half's gonna go, "See ya." So I just wouldn't touch it, unless I was forced to.
Well, like on social media, when you didn't put that blackout thing,
right?
Then you were obviously not racist. In support of black people, and. No, everybody, has this idea that if you don't speak about something, you must not have the popular opinion. Or you must not care. Or, when in reality, you just care about something else. Like if we all cared about the same thing, then lots of other things would get lost. So I think we all have a special place in our hearts for different things that we care about, and nobody should be judged for that. Unless it's like, supporting serial killers.
Well, but see, that exactly it, right? See, people make that statement, but then there's a but if. Right, and we all have the line to cross. You say, well, I believe everybody should do whatever they want as long as they don't hurt other people, unless it's this thing.
Yeah, we
this
all
thing's
have
not okay.
the extreme outliers of those statements,
Right.
should be known without having to comment. That obviously there's limits to everything.
Right.
But yeah.
Well, because then you have that, and a friend of mine kind of brought this up to me. But you make that statement that anybody should be able to do whatever they want, unless they're hurting other people. Mm-hmm. But then, what it means to hurt other people becomes this sliding scale that becomes whatever that person wants it to be, right? Like simply me believing something. Just having a belief about something, to one group of people is violent. Mm-hmm. I don't know them. I haven't talked to them. I haven't touched them. I haven't harmed them in any way. Mm-hmm. But I believe differently than them. Mm-hmm. Therefore, I'm hurting them.
Right.
So let's say, no, Ryan, you can't have that belief because it's hurtful towards somebody else. Hurtful? An opinion is hurt? I mean, when did that start? I guess that's a concept I can't grasp. I can't think of. I cannot think of any opinion, not action, not anything else, just strictly opinion that anybody can have that's going to harm me. I can't think of a single thing that would harm me. Just the opinion.
What if the world was ruled by transgenders who hated white males, and their opinion was that white males suck?
I would say
to keep it simple.
That opinion wouldn't hurt me.
But that opinion influences, say they were all CEOs of companies and of the library and things like that, it would affect you.
Because their actions would affect me.
Yes, but their opinions affect their actions. So
true.
It's the infection of an opinion that influences actions that is harmful.
Yes, but yes, I wouldn't say that the opinion doesn't influence the action at all. Obviously, the opinion does.
Right.
But if you just had the opinion in and of itself, doesn't cause any problems.
No, but that might be what they are
anticipating.
What they're stating. Like, your opinion is harmful.
Right.
Your opinion causes a harmful ripple effect in your community in my community, because now when I go to get a job and I'm obviously a man in women's clothing, they're not going to hire me at Olive Garden. Mm-hmm. They're not going to hire me. So we are trying to shut down those opinions so that we can live our lives freely without that kind of rejection from society.
But let's say if I put myself in Congress, right? I'm in Congress. Look out, world. And I say, and someone comes and they say, hey, we're not going to allow. This company, let's say, is not going to allow, there's a dress code.
Yeah.
So, men aren't allowed to wear dresses, let's say, as part of the dress code. I would say, okay.
Right.
But, for them, so, and if it's just an opinion, like if they have an opinion about something, I don't care. Like I guess what I'm saying is, so that let's say there's a man that works there that likes to wear dresses. And he's coming to me and he's like, hey, this isn't right. I'm trying to work over here at Olive Garden and they're telling me I can't wear dresses. Mm-hmm. My opinion is that I should be allowed to wear dresses.
Yeah.
I would say you have every right to have that opinion. I will not take that away from you.
Yeah.
But Olive Garden's policy is, I'm just using Olive Garden because you said it. I'm sure they don't have this policy.
I know. No offense, Olive Garden.
They must be getting close to lunch. And say, well, but Olive Garden's policy is that men are not allowed to wear dresses. So now you can choose to work there and not wear dresses to work, or you can choose not to. Mm-hmm. Now, if Olive Garden had a policy that said, or not even a policy, let's just say that they found out that this employee who's never worn dresses to work, they found out that he likes to wear dresses outside of work. Mm-hmm. And they saw that and they're like, we got to get rid of this guy. Mm-hmm. I would also stand up and say that is totally 100% wrong, because that's what that person's doing in their personal life. It has nothing to do with what they're doing at work. Mm-hmm. Your dress code and rules apply to work.
Right.
It'd be no different than, me working where I work and having somebody listen to this podcast and go, oh, Ryan has views that I disagree with. Let's fire him.
Yeah.
No.
Right.
That's my own personal podcast that I'm doing where I'm talking about my views on things.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm going to work and I'm trying to push my beliefs on everybody there, and it's ticking people off, and they're complaining about me, then that's different, right? Because now I'm affecting the workplace,
right.
But it's just we've gotten to this point where it's like people aren't allowed to have their own views and opinions without it affecting their own lives by somebody who disagrees with them and saying, "Oh, we got to cancel this guy. We got to get rid of this guy. We got to make this guy's life hell." And it's just like, why isn't he allowed to have his own opinion? I have no problem with someone else having a different opinion than me.
Well, going back to the influence that opinions can have on our actions, when are opinions separate from our actions? When do they not influence our actions?
They do, but you can also have an opinion and not act on it.
But how often does that happen?
Well, I'm not sure. I can only speak for myself, but I think the argument is irrelevant because what should be attacked is the action, not the opinion. Like, for example, if I have an opinion that abortion is wrong, my opinion doesn't hurt anybody. Now, if I go and I blow up an abortion clinic because my opinion is abortion is wrong,
right,
then I should be judged and attacked for that action that I committed.
But doesn't your opinion affect your vote? Like, can you vote separate from your opinion?
You can, but I don't think most people do.
Right. So that's how, because opinions are very rarely, if ever, separated from an action, that's why people attack the opinions. Because you can't really separate.
Well, because they're scared of the voting? Is that like who's going to get into office kind of thing?
Not just voting, but like a workplace or any sort of policy that's made is going to have the root from an opinion. And so those opinions are hurtful because they're the root of a lot of policies that are out there.
But yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I would say it's the policy that's hurtful because that's actually impacting somebody's life.
Right.
Not the opinion. As long as the opinion can stay just an opinion. I mean, voting's different. Voting's different because we're going to vote for things based on our personal beliefs.
Right.
Obviously, right? That's different. And yes, that can sway things politically as far as what laws may or may not be put into place.
Right.
But ultimately, it's that law that's put in or out of place that's going to affect the people.
Right.
It's not the opinion. You see what I'm saying?
You can get to the opinions more easily than you can the policy. Like the people who vote on the policy, that came from an opinion. So that's why that opinion is attacked, I think, from either side. Like, I think opinions are attacked for that reason because they're the root cause of policies or prejudices that are out there. So you can't really speak of opinions and isolate them as separate from the things we're seeing exercised on different people who are offended.
And I can understand that.
I think that's where they're coming from.
No, you're right.
That goes back to how do these people care so much about my opinion? I think that's why. I think it's because our opinions really do affect their life. In that way. But just the statement, no. Like if we're able as a society to isolate our opinions into this little box and it doesn't affect anything else outside of it, then why care? But I think it does. Just by the nature of how connected opinions and actions are. That's why people them.
And you're right. So I mean if we're looking at like who we're going to vote for president,
my opinions are going to fully affect
they're fully going to affect that. And if you vote for somebody who tends to hold a lot of the same morals as you do, and they're going to be the one that's in charge of putting Supreme Court justices in place, they're going to put, hopefully, at least assumingly, I should say not hopefully, assumingly, they're going to put people in there that hold similar morals and values, which in turn is going to change the laws of the land. So you're right, as far as that being, okay, well, this opinion down the road could affect things, right? So right now at work, we're going through it's a D.E.I. Are you familiar? Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Oh. Right. So I happened to have missed the meeting. Oh, no. Thankfully.
Oh, good.
Oh, no.
Oh, God.
No. This is big. I might even cut this part out just because I don't even know if I want this out there yet, but I was told by some people what a lot of it had to do with, and it's the whole idea of white man is bad. Oh no! It's this whole thing, right? And we're supposed to have this big meeting about it, this day long work training where we're going to do all this. So I am definitely going to talk to somebody before that happens, and I'm going to say, look, I highly advise that you just excuse me from this training, because I am not going to be able to sit in that room while you spew lies about me based on what I look like.
Yeah.
That is absolute 100% racism.
Yeah.
That is the definition of racism.
Right.
Is to assume somebody is a certain way based on what they look like.
Yep.
100%.
Yeah.
Yet, today, they've changed the definition of racism.
They have.
To mean only when a white person views someone else that way.
Yeah.
That's racism. But if a minority group views a white guy that way, nope.
Then they should call it whiteism.
Not racist. Well, but it's racism no matter the way you look at it.
Yeah.
And of course their argument is, but it's always been white man, blah, 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 blah. It's like, okay, fine. Yes. Years and years and years and years and years ago. Yes. Okay, great.
No, look at world history. Racism is everywhere.
Yes.
Everywhere.
Right.
In every race.
Yes.
In everything.
I know.
It's ridiculous.
I know. It's dumb.
I mean, yes, okay, let's talk about how ethnically we I don't even want to say we, because I'm not the we.
Mm-hmm.
I am me, and I'm here now.
Right.
But land wars, I would say, involves racism, regionalism. I don't know. I would call it regionalism,
Sure.
not even racism. Like,
right.
it's just you have something I want, and I'm going to take it.
Right.
That go back to Cain and Abel. That's in our genetics. That's
Yes.
just it's part of sin.
Right.
It's our sin nature, and
Right.
every single human is guilty
Right.
of that.
Right.
Every single human. So it's ridiculous.
Well, it's like going back to everybody tries to say America came over here and slaughtered all the innocent, peace-loving Indians and took their land away, and we're all a bunch of jerks and stuff. And I am not going to sit here and say that I think America has been on the right side of things from day one, or that they never did anything wrong, or that they didn't do anything.
Seizure of land has no blood on its hands.
Right.
None.
Right. Exactly. Well, that's my point. And you go back into history and you look at the Indian tribes that lived here before, or Native American tribes, I should say. I'm getting myself in trouble. They were doing the same thing.
Uh-huh.
They were fighting with each other.
Yep.
And they were killing each other and taking over land. That's just what happens.
Yeah.
Right? Am I justifying that?
No.
Am I sitting here trying to say that's something I think God is smiling down on? Good job, guys.
Yeah.
No, he's not. But for us to paint out the Europeans like some just the only people in the world that are just these bloodthirsty, egotistical jerks who are just going around killing all these innocent people just to take over their land is just crap. It's just crap.
I mean, they might have been. We did a cool study on Columbus, and you
can't speak his name anymore.
He was given wisdom from the Lord. I feel, from whatever history we choose to believe is truth, and he used that privilege in a very selfish way. He wanted gold. He wanted to save face. He wanted a great reputation,
right?
And that perverted his original quest, I think. It was, he wanted fame and fortune.
Right.
And he died never even knowing or admitting that he found a new continent.
Right.
He died putting his foot firm in the ground that he found Asia.
Right.
And that was his own pride that did not let him even live in the glory of giving him credit for finding a new. And there were other people actually after him. Anyway, so he did do some pretty selfish, awful things in the name of Christianity.
Yes.
In the name of the Lord. But he's that person. That person screwed up. Mm-hmm. And the people he employed and brought over there probably screwed up. Right. Probably. And that's okay to say that.
Right.
It's okay to learn from that and
sure.
go, look, the Lord endowed him with wisdom and this drive, and look what he did with it. Mm-hmm. It was a perverted version of what the Lord had, I think, what the Lord had him do. Who really knows? Right. Because the Lord did lead people into slaughter entire races of people.
Women, children, everything, yeah.
Yep. So we have to take that into account when we think about the character of our Lord.
Right.
But I do think there was some perversions and horrible things that happened, but do we have to attribute what those humans did back then to what we are and our identity now?
Well, of course you do.
Absolutely not.
I mean, it's exactly who you are. You are just like Columbus.
I know. I guess so. so I think it's ridiculous that people now want us to suffer like
Right.
they have suffered. And
Right.
I think it's a very natural human desire for
Revenge.
revenge.
Right.
It's not foreign.
But it's not even how they have suffered, it's how their ancestors have suffered.
Well, no, yes, they don't suffer in the same way.
Right.
But I do believe that a lot of minorities, whether it's their own passed on mindset that's being given to their children generation after generation,
Yep.
or our government that also gives them crutches and keeps them poor and keeps them in that mindset. I think it's a lot of different things in our society and in their society that is keeping them oppressed. And so I do think there is this thing that they're experiencing that we are not experiencing because that mindset is not passed down to us. But if you look at minorities that were given parents or have parents who continually feed them success and not a stuck in the box mindset like you're oppressed, those people have the same opportunities as we do.
Right.
So their
Right.
prison is created by their mind.
Statistically, they do fine.
Yes.
Right? So that
Or
tells you
more
right there, it's not so
successful
much
than
about
us.
ethnicity, it's more about the mindset.
Exactly.
It's more about what you're being taught.
Yes.
And the influence that you're having and your parenting.
Yes.
That's true across the board.
Right.
I don't care what color you are. It
Yeah.
doesn't make any difference if you for the most part statistically, if you come up with bad parents,
Yeah.
you don't have as good a shot at life as someone who has
Exactly.
good parents. You
Exactly.
know? And
So-
unfortunately, in a lot of these minority communities, you have a lot of that.
Yes.
You know.
And you don't realize that these government agencies or government whatever, I don't know what the word is, but like government help, like the promotion of abortion in those communities, like that's not, you're killing you're killing these, you're not empowering them to take control of their life, and you're allowing them to just live however they want. There's no consequences. I just think that they are being trapped in this world of poverty, but they keep voting for these handouts, and they don't realize that these handouts and this education that they're being given about their lives is keeping them there. And I think that's where it is the government kind of keeping them there in a way, instead of kind of letting them figure themselves out.
Do you think that's conscious? Do you think the government's doing that consciously, or is it kind of just something that's been in place since the 40s and the 50s and it's just kind of hasn't changed yet? Do you know what I mean? Like, do you think they're actually actively still thinking to themselves, hey, we got to keep these minorities in the ghettos and we got to keep them under our thumb and we have to keep feeding them lies about all this stuff, that way that they stay there because we have some benefit in them staying in the poverty and the bad neighborhoods?
I have a preconceived filter against government bodies anyway. Like, I think that people who crave power are usually not inherently good people. I
would agree.
You look at the Bible and you look at all of that history and people who are, just put in. I just don't think that their motives are clean and good. And so I lean towards them knowing that they're doing something bad, but when you're really high up in power, the value of humanity goes down. Individual, like person. The value of an individual person goes down for you. Even like doctors who have a lot of patients, the value of each individual life, you get numb to it because of you're inundated with just too much stuff. You devalue people. Drug companies, it says 2% of people are going to die, but we're going to help 60% of people. So it's okay that we're going to kill this 2% who wouldn't have died otherwise. So
do you agree with that? I mean, do you think that is that like a more is better kind of thing? Because if you're ultimately saving thousands of lives for the death of 10, I mean, in theory, that sounds like a better solution. Now, of course, to the family members of those 10 people that are dying,
And the individual.
Dies. It's not good, right?
Right.
But looking at it like as a just a blanket like thing and saying, okay, but statistically, this is better. There's more.
I think they have to look at it that way. Otherwise, they wouldn't advance in any way. So I totally understand that. What I disagree with is when I go into a doctor's office and I question that authority because I am the individual who's being affected by it, I get scoffed at.
Right.
I get eye rolls. I get, I'm the doctor, honey.
Because you don't have a PhD.
And you don't have PhD and do your own research, So that's what I don't like. That's where I think the detachment, they laugh when I say, well, what are the side effects? Right. And I think that's where the harm comes in, is when you're taking away the validity of that person's concern for their individual life.
Sure.
And it's, it shouldn't trickle down. The dehumanization, I feel like, should be diluted, if that makes sense. I'm kind of talking backwards.
Well, it shouldn't even exist.
I think it has to, though, when you're trying to save percentages of people. When you think of percentages, that's why vaccines are a thing. Like, yes, some very small percentage is going to be hurt, and it's kids, and that's why it's super hard.
Right.
But and adults too. But nobody cares about old people. I'm just kidding.
Well, tell us how you really feel.
I'm just kidding. That's not true. And so I think they have to think about that. Where a certain amount of kids are going to die of this disease if we don't vaccinate a certain number of kids. So I totally.
Right.
I think that's the only way you can think.
Right.
When you're developing a drug. So I agree with it because I understand it. But when it comes to my individual life and my individual family members, I'm going to question it. And I think that doctors should be more sensitive with that. The thing that I don't agree with is that the dehumanization has trickled down to doctors that are with the individual patients. Right. They should be our advocates on an individual basis, but they're not.
Even if they disagree with you, even if they feel that way inside, they think to themselves, okay, I went to 8 years of medical school. I've studied the diseases. I've studied the vaccines. I've studied all this. And here comes Joe Schmo off the street who's trying to tell me, maybe that's how they feel.
It is.
But they shouldn't be like, you moron.
Yeah.
You idiot. Are you so stupid? I'm the doctor.
And
just listen to what I say.
Like that.
They should be like, I understand your concerns.
Yeah.
Here's the research. Let's look at some statistics. Yes, a very, very small percentage of people has an allergic reaction to this particular medication. But for most people, it works well. There's no side effects. It's very helpful. That's the way they should approach it.
And a lot of them do. My doctor does. I love my doctor. So he's very, very kind in that way. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot more doctors are emerging out of that, I'm the doctor, listen to me era.
Right.
Like they're coming out of that and being more sensitive to that. And this age of information is inundating people with wrong things.
Right.
Just wrong, and it's very convincing that you're right because so many people are in your face telling you that, you're right. And it's hard to navigate. And I think a lot of doctors are finally acknowledging that. But
it's the whole pulling rank idea, right? And it happens with churches and pastors sometimes too. Where you can question a pastor and you're like, well, I'm wondering, you just said this from the pulpit, but the scripture, the way I'm reading it, says this, and now the pastor has a choice. He can be like, I'm a pastor. Who are you?
Yeah.
Don't question me.
No, yeah.
Or they can say, oh, that's a valid point. Let's look at it together.
Yeah, and what's
break
more
it down.
common to you? Like, is it...
Well, in my personal life, I think
the humble view or the...
I've had a few pastors that have been kind of that way. More like, I think the word that was used to me one time specifically was, don't bother yourself with that kind of... Or to a friend of mine, sorry. Yeah. Don't bother yourself with that kind of thing.
Right.
With what kind of thing? Studying God's word and figuring out what it means? Isn't that what I should be? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but I think in my life, in my Christian life, I think for the most part, all the pastors I've had have been very
open-minded,
open
That's
to
good.
it, but still sticking by what they believe it says, which is good. Because if that's what it says, that's what I want too, right? So I mean, I think that's why I am the way I am today, because and that's why even with other Christians, I'm at odds a lot of times, because they're like, well, Ryan, we got to know what this means and we got to come to some conclusion. I'm like, well, but the text doesn't say what it means. Like, it doesn't give us the answer you're looking for.
Yeah.
You're trying to find an answer in the scripture that the scriptures don't give.
Right.
So just Just say, I don't understand,
I
and walk
understand.
away.
Exactly.
But there's so many Christians that they can't cope with that.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, oh no, I have to understand. If you're supposed to understand, the Lord will let you understand.
I know.
Someday, maybe
I'm
not.
one of those Christians.
Yeah.
Really hope I do. Because I don't know. I'll tell you why, and then you can decide what my why. I fixate on it for weeks. Like I'm depressed and I can't.
Like
think
a
of
section of
anything else.
scripture, or more like.
Yeah, like
Okay.
one thing that made me close the Bible and have to walk. So I struggle a lot with unbelief, like of his existence, and I think that's just something my flesh is always going to attack me on, like attack my mind, and I just think I'm really drawn to. I don't know, being influenced by that, by the possibility that he's not real.
Right.
So when I read something in scripture that's like, this is so hokey. Like Moses' staff and the snake thing.
Right.
I'm like, this sounds like Merlin, and sounds like it was written by some guy, and I just want to cry. Like, I just want to close the book and cry. And because my mind makes connections so fast with stuff like that. And I know enough to think I'm right, but not enough to know I'm wrong. Mm-hmm. So that statement from a famous scientist, I don't know who he is, like really got me.
Yeah.
Because I do that often. I know enough to think I'm right, and know not enough to know I'm wrong. And so I'm like, I always take that stance when I feel something really, really powerfully that is against God. Mm-hmm. But I put it aside because I'm like, no, I just don't know enough yet. I've read one book from cover to cover, one book of the Bible, and then I'm just gonna sit on this rotten egg of his existence not being real,
right.
And it's not even backed up by anything.
Right.
I'm not even gonna sit there anymore.
Right.
So I read something it was, I don't know names. You'll probably know. It's Old Testament. Achan.
Oh yeah,
and
Achan that was hiding the treasure in his tent.
Yes.
Yeah.
That bothered me so much because the Lord told him to kill. Like, his disobedience affected everybody.
It was his whole family.
A war, but they killed his sons,
wife and kids,
wives,
yeah,
and their kids. Like,
right.
The whole bloodline.
Yeah.
Was killed.
Yeah.
Oh, and I just could not sit with that character of God. I couldn't do it. And then the Lord, I closed the book. I wasn't angry. Mm-hmm. I wasn't like anger. It was just like so much for my heart to handle because this sounds like not God. The God's not real. This is just a stupid story that somebody wrote based on their stuff from that time. And it just made me sick to my stomach, right. Just the thought of that. Then the Lord took me down this road of realizing how society has magnified compassion over following Christ. Like, compassion for people overpowers God's word a lot of the time and numbs God's word and makes it not valid or so hard to take in. And so once I was shown that, I was able to reopen that book and see it through different eyes, that right. God cleanses. And I've read Genesis over and over and over again, and it's so different every time I read it. It's the coolest book, at least Genesis 1, and maybe a little bit of 2.
Like the creation account.
Till it gets to the genealogies, and it's really boring.
Yeah.
But he wipes out genetic lines all the time. Mm-hmm. He cleanses us, like when the flood, he cleansed the world of Cain and Cain's genetic bloodline, except for Noah. And
which still makes it carry on in
it makes
theory,
it carry
right?
on, but Noah's bloodline was blessed. Like, they were the only people on the planet
right.
who had genetics, who had a heart, who had all these things that still carried on
right.
belief in God.
Well, it says Noah was the only righteous man.
Yeah.
It wasn't even his family. They were just attached to him.
Yes.
So, he's got to procreate with somebody, and his sons have to procreate and that whole deal.
Yes. So I think God works that way. That wisdom was brought to me through laying it down to him mm-hmm. and reading the Bible with that perspective.
Right.
And I could see now, okay, Lord, okay.
Right.
I forgive you.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because when I get into discussions with people about things like that, and they'll read a story like Akins, or they'll read a story of just certain things that don't sit right. You just said it perfectly. It doesn't sit right with me. And they'll say, that, Ryan, that's why I don't believe in God. And I'll say, well, that's fine. You have the right to your opinion. But what I will say is that in and of itself doesn't prove God doesn't exist. It just proves that God's not who you think he is or who you want him to be. God doesn't line up with what you want.
Yeah.
That's different than saying somebody doesn't exist, right? That's like you want to go to a concert when you're 15 in 2 states away, and your parents say, no, you can't go. I don't want you to go. And then I come back and I say, well, my parents don't exist.
Yeah.
My parents aren't real.
Right.
They don't exist.
Right.
That'd be idiotic. No, they do exist, and they told you no, and you don't like it.
Yeah.
Right? You don't like the way things are, and I think ultimately, and this is what's hard for Christians and it's hard for non-believers to understand why we can be this way, is sometimes you just have to say, Lord, I don't understand that.
Yeah.
But I trust that you know what you're doing.
Right.
I trust that you know far beyond anything I can see. You can see the future. You know the past. You know who I am better than I do, better than anybody does. You know what needs to happen for your purposes.
Yeah.
But then the argument from the other side comes, oh, that's kind of egotistical for him to do things for his own purposes. I mean, well, who is this God? Is it all about him? Yes.
Yeah.
It is. Why? Because he created you.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for him. Of course, he has the right to do whatever he wants. And then people try to put that on a human level.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't do that. Well, you're not God. What does that prove?
Yeah.
You saying you'd be a better God than he is? I mean, what are you trying to say?
Our ego prevents us from humbling ourselves enough to see that everything he does is worthy.
Right.
Everything he does is good. Right. Everything he does is
right.
Is
well, he does
righteous.
all things for the good of those who love him, is what Scripture says, right? So I mean, yeah. So hey, let's go back to the beginning of your Christian life. Tell me how that came about. Since we're already delving into spirituality aspects, I just want to kind of hear about your journey to there. You weren't brought up in the church.
My mom read the Bible to me often, and she talked about God often, and we had people over, Jehovah's Witnesses, all the time talking about God. So I feel like I've always known about him. I can't remember a time when I didn't know.
You were never an atheist.
No, never. I was more like a oblivious teenager stage, just didn't care. But I've always been drawn to it, always. Like when I was in 6th grade, I asked if I could go with my friend who was a Jehovah's Witness to church. So I went to church. I went over to her house every day after school, and I studied books with her. And I wanted to know the Lord. I didn't do it for friends. I had to stop hanging out with all my friends, Tasha and Monica and all those people. Because I was dedicating so much time to getting baptized as a Jehovah's Witness when I was in 6th grade. How old is that? 11?
Yeah. Did you actually get baptized?
No, because right before I was going to be baptized, there was this boy named Russell Clady who I liked. And
Listen, Russell?
Yeah. I asked Chelsea if I could date him, and she's like, no. And I was like, okay, bye.
Oh, man. It reminds me of that stand-up with, I think it's Jim Gaffigan, where he's talking about the religions, and he's talking about circumcision. And he goes, all right, we got the list here. Okay, no pork, no this. You need to cut off part of your penis. Wait, what? I'm in the wrong line.
That was me. And dating
that was the
boy,
one thing that just took you out. Like, I can't like this boy, then I'm out.
Yeah, and it was totally innocent. It was just not even going out on dates. It was just giggling together, really. That's all it was. And so that's what.
Well, 6th grade, I would hope so.
Yes.
I would hope it wasn't beyond that.
Nowadays.
That's true.
So yeah, I left that because of that, but I was always drawn to it, and then
To the idea of God, you mean, or Jehovah's Witness
truth.
specifically?
Not
just truth in general.
Just getting fed the word. I really wanted to know more about it, and so I did that. And my parents didn't take me. My mom didn't go with me. And then I was working at Sears, and one of the workers there asked me, or no, wait, I don't even know how I found out about it, but there was a youth Bible study at, I think it was Calvary Chapel.
Here in town?
I think it was at the church that you go to now.
Okay.
Again. But there was a pastor who was doing like a youth thing. It was called Teens and the Lord or something. I don't remember. But I just showed up like by myself to that. And just wanted to know about the Lord.
Really, no friends went with you or anything?
Nothing.
Wow.
I don't know what it is, but I just have always wanted to know him, to know the truth. And then my senior year, this is before that, I'm not going in sequence, but before that even, I remember my junior year in high school, I was very interested in truth and God and what he was and who he was. And I would have conversations with people who didn't care about it back then, but I did. So I've always cared to know the truth. And then when I was 18, I believe I was 18, I read that verse about God sitting above the circle of the earth. And I had been praying for years before that to just know the truth. Like, take this veil away, whatever it is that's holding me back from knowing that you are the truth. Please just get rid of it. Like, I am not built with the capacity to just believe because someone says so.
Right, me neither.
I'm not built that way.
That must be hereditary.
Yes. And it's a generational curse.
Yeah.
And I need you to just come in front of me and just appear in front of me, whatever it is, and you need to just get rid of this barrier between me and you. And that verse did that. That verse took it away. The barrier was gone.
How so? Like in what way?
I don't know. I heard the verse, and I remember getting in my car, and my smile would not go away, and I was crying, and I'm looking out my windshield, and I'm going, "You're real.
Wow.
You're really real." And I never went back after that. So, and the next days following that, I think that was my moment of salvation, really, because
at 18.
Because after that, I went to the grocery store. I might have been older because I was living with my dad. I was living with my dad on Cook Street. Do you remember when I lived there?
No.
I don't think I was 18 because right when I graduated, I moved to Lompoc. Then after that, I moved in with Danny.
Yeah, see, there's this whole time frame, like even with Danny, that I wasn't around for.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if it was during, me and Danny were just talking about this when I was just in Washington. But we were trying to figure out if it was because of the fight that our moms got into. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
And then we just didn't really talk to each other for probably a good 2-3 years. And I'm wondering if it was during that time, because there's so much stuff for,
graduated
like,
high school, and that was in the Edgewood house.
that fight that happened. Okay.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
Okay. I wasn't even there.
I was there.
I missed the whole thing. Not that I would want to be there
Yeah.
for it, but I heard about it later, and I just remember. And it wasn't like it was anything spoken. It wasn't like my mom said, "Don't talk to Danny and Diane anymore," or that your mom was saying that to them. It just happened that way. Like, I just didn't for a long
we were younger,
time. Yeah.
I think, and we were still under the control of our parents. So, like, if they weren't together, we weren't driving over to see each other.
True.
So, but that was in the Edgewood house. So this was
Okay.
years later. This was after I graduated high school.
Okay.
And I was living with my dad. So it was after I was living with Danny. Danny had left. So I was in my 20s, probably, I would say.
Danny had left to go to Washington or
That's the only
Davis?
reason I moved out. Davis.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I think Washington. Because he was moving out of the Lark house
Okay.
to Washington. So I'm pretty sure it was that move.
Right.
And I moved in with my dad. So, okay, so now we've established the timeline more accurately.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
And I went to the grocery store either that day or the next day, and the clerk says, "Are you a Christian?" I said, "I am." And she's like, "You're just glowing." It happened twice in the next 2 days where I guess, and I didn't do I wasn't saying anything, I wasn't preaching anything.
Right.
It was just, I think, something the Lord designed to keep my mind from going into the realm of coincidence and to go into the realm of I made this up, because that's what I do. I explain away his effects on my life in any way I can. And I don't know why, but I think it's because I crave undeniable truth.
Right.
And if I can deny it in any way, I hold on to that.
Right.
And so this was something that supernatural that I can't fully explain away. And I could of course make stuff up, but none of it is like a there I got it, moment. So that was a moment for me that was very significant in my walk with Christ, or my walk as a Christian. And then you came into my life. You were already in it, but as an influential Christian, leading me towards more food, more faith, more of the Word.
But here's what's okay. So here's and from my recollection, I remember our first discussions about any of that when I had first become a Christian. We were having like evolution debates. And I can remember a specific time where you were telling me that evolution just makes sense. And then I was trying to argue kind of from the creationist perspective. And I feel like that was definitely after you were 18. So maybe...
Yeah, it was late. It was in my 20s.
Okay, so maybe that was just kind of a time where you were just kind of struggling with certain things in yourself. And you maybe you weren't totally solid on certain aspects of it. Okay.
No,
Okay.
Evolution did make sense from... It still does make sense from a larger scale, full of lies theory. But when you dive into specifics and you start asking questions and you start looking at the lies that are perpetuated and taught as fact, the whole thing falls apart.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah, I didn't know any of that back then. And it just, as an idea, I can understand where it makes sense. But when you take the idea and you start picking it apart and questioning these things that they have said as fact, then it's just the whole thing falls apart. So,
right. Yeah. Well, and I think it's important to establish what we're even talking about when we talk about evolution, because there's because you got micro and you got macro, right?
Yes.
Not everybody.
Or adaptation.
Which is micro.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. That's micro, and that's when people say, well, like that famous movie that Ray Comfort did, where he goes around asking people, he's trying to find proof for Darwinian evolution, and they'll say, oh, like the Darwin's finches and their beaks change. They go, are they still birds? And the guy goes, well, yeah, they're still birds. He goes, no. I'm asking for proof of like Darwinian, like molecules to man, like macro evolution, like one animal forming into another animal, not a bird's beak changing, not a fish's gill slits change. I mean, that's not what we're talking about. It's still a fish, right? That's all adaptation. That's microevolution, which I believe in. I think most Christians do believe in because it's scientifically proven, right? But then a lot of the people will try to say that macroevolution is also scientifically proven, and that's where I kind of like, well, I mean, I'm open to it, but I'm going to have to see some pretty solid proof of that. And I even had the biology teacher when I was in college was talking about that, and she said, I think it was Lucy, and she was talking about Lucy, and I was explaining that I had just saw a thing on the TV the night before, which was ironic, right? What are the odds of me watching that the night before she's going to start talking about this? And I said, well, hey, I just saw a thing on TV last night that, and this was a secular show. It wasn't religious in any way. And they were talking about how they were now seeing that Lucy was not a missing link. She was just a species of ape that they didn't know about before, based on the bones and what they had, And I had said, well, it's just actually not a missing link. And the biology teacher didn't even address that. She just said, she immediately went to, oh, there's no missing links in the fossil record. There's no missing links. I said, really? I said, I mean, I've talked to a lot of even evolutionary biologists that would say, yeah, there's a lot missing in the fossil record as far as if we're talking about fish to people, right? I mean, there's a lot of missing links there. But yeah, she went on and on about it. I said, really? I said, well, I'd love to see that, you know?
Yeah.
And she goes, oh, read this chapter in the book or whatever. She gave me even a book of her own. It's from her own library. Oh, read this chapter in this book.
Yeah.
There's nothing in there about, I mean, nothing.
Right.
I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
This doesn't prove anything. It doesn't even
Right.
talk about what you're talking about, you know? So, anyway, but that's a side tangent. But, so let's go back.
Relevant.
Yeah.
Not irrelevant. Relevant.
Relevant. Yes, totally irrelevant, Ryan. Just stop talking. You're you know.
No, I'm not.
No, so now you okay. So refresh my memory as far as when you and I started talking about this kind of thing, because you say I came into the picture, which I'm assuming if you're 18, I'm 25. So I'm 25.
Maybe your timeline, you can tell me where you were at 25.
25,
I would say
was
20. I would say I had already moved out of Danny's and I was going to Hancock, and I was living with my dad when this happened.
Okay.
So
I got saved when I was 24. So 25, 26, 27, that's still very early Christian life for me.
So 22, you would have been 29.
29.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I would say around 22.
Okay, so that's probably around the time I started out at Sisquoc.
Okay.
Because I was 24 when I got saved, and then we were at Calvary for about 5 years. And then if you remember this or not, I remember this just because it's a funny story. But you came over and watched my kids for me the first time I went to the Greek class. Mm-hmm. Do you remember this?
Maybe.
Yeah, it was at the Hemlock House, and you had come over and stayed with Aiden and Laura at the time. I don't even think Addie was even born yet. And you had stayed there with them, and this was a class that I'd been wanting to go to for like a year and a half at this point. My friend Chris had told me about it, and it sounded awesome to me because I've always been a skeptic, whether it was when I was arguing with Christians or even after I became one. I was still a skeptic. I was always looking at the arguments that people would make, and I would want to try to find the answer to it if there was one. And so I was being told by this friend of mine, he's like, hey man, once you start studying from the Greek, a lot of those questions get answered. And I thought, ooh, gold mine, you know? But then I still put it off for like a year and a half. And I'm like, I kept saying, oh, I'll just wait till they start a new book. What are they in? Oh, they're in Philippians. I'll wait till they start Colossians. And Chris is like, dude, just go.
Yeah.
So one night I was like, fine, okay, I'll go, you know, and I'll finally go. And so you came over and watched the kids, and I came home, and I remember you saying, how was it, you know? And I said, it was awesome. And you said, well, what did you learn? I said, that it's pronounced Philippi and not Philippi. You know, which of course isn't like mind blowing, right? Like who cares how it's pronounced?
Yeah.
But that wasn't even all that was, obviously not all that was taught that night, but that's what I remembered when you asked me that question. Even though inside I was on fire. I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I've been looking for.
Wow.
This is the kind of study I need to be involved in. That was the best Bible study I've ever been in.
Yeah.
Like all 5 years of church that I'd been in up to that point didn't even hold a candle to that.
Yeah.
But of course I was in a different place. I think I needed those 5 years of the church I was in to, you know, as a young Christian to get to where I was. But it was just mind blowing.
That's
you
so
know?
cool.
So I'm not sure if you remember that, but
I don't remember that specific memory, so I really enjoyed hearing it.
Yeah.
But,
but that's when I can remember even theological dialogue starting between me and you.
Well, no, maybe dialogue, yes. But you, before that, you were still at Calvary Chapel. I remember coming to church there a few times.
Oh,
and
really?
you guys
Okay.
would invite me to lots of concerts.
Yes!
And I would go.
We saw Supertones.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we just saw the picture came up the other day. I was like, hey, that's right. Diana went to that too.
Yeah, so there were lots of invites and stuff into that world with you. So...
Which you were never opposed to, which I always found really cool.
Yeah, I wanted it.
Right.
It was something that my heart was just, I wanted it, but I couldn't make the leap to change the course of my life and wrap it around this faith.
Right, because that's what I was thinking too, because you had a bunch of boyfriends in and out of that time too, right?
Yeah.
That some were spiritual-ish and some not so much. Like I remember the one guy, he was like Jewish, or at least he believed a lot in that. Because he used to argue with me.
Jason?
Jason.
Oh,
he used to argue with me and tell me that, the New Testament isn't accurate, and
we never talked
Judaism.
about that stuff.
And I say, well, are you Jewish? He goes, no, I'm not Jewish, but I believe in Judaism.
Yeah, his best friend was Jewish.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Wow, and he was a non-believing in Jesus as the Messiah Jew.
Right.
He didn't believe that Jesus was the Messiah.
Correct.
So
right.
yeah, Jason was brought up in that, I think, because they've been friends since kids. So yeah, I didn't even know that about him. But we would go to Bible studies together, and he hated it. He hated every second of it.
Nice.
And
where were you going to Bible studies at?
When I started going to the one I went to by myself with nobody, we were dating, but he didn't come with me. So he came with me later.
This is at Calvary?
Yes.
Is this the young adult group?
Yes.
Okay, the college group.
Yes.
Okay.
So you probably told me about that.
I remember
I don't know
that.
If you did.
Mm-hmm.
But,
I remember that. Who was leading that back then? Was it Pat Haug?
Yes.
It was. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So he had a beard.
Yeah.
And he was real nice, real funny.
Yeah.
So that was great. And I don't remember anything spiritual any spiritual growth from that really, but it was just something I desired to go to. Monica, I went to her church all growing up and I hated it, honestly, because it made me really uncomfortable. Just the focus on gifts and speaking in tongues. That was the only thing I really remembered out of that. And the pressure that was put on you. Like, you would get put into prayer groups where 4 or 5 people would just be hovering around you, praying to God and speaking in tongues for you to speak in tongues.
Right.
So the pressure was very uncomfortable. And the like mob mentality of the whole, it just didn't sit right with me. It made me really uncomfortable. The Holy Spirit can make you uncomfortable. I'm okay with that if it's from the Holy Spirit. Like, I'm not opposed to that. And to this day, I lay it down before the Lord. If this is what I'm supposed to be doing and it really is of you, Lord,
right.
I'll do it. I'll do it with full dedication.
What if, just throwing this out there, but what if you feel that the Lord is telling you to do something, but it goes against Scripture? What do you do then?
I lay it down. I say, Lord, this is coming from the Word of God, and this is, I would let him work it out, because up until now, he's never let me down. When I'm confused about something, he doesn't let me sit there. Some sort of like, without a doubt, confirmation comes through. Like, for example, I asked the Lord once, do you plan, like, how specific is your planning? Like, do you plan every moment when, like, if my shoe's untied and the timing of that? These questions came up because of people getting in car accidents or missing a car accident by milliseconds,
Right, like maybe you're angry because you can't find your keys.
Yes.
But then you finally find them 10 minutes later. You're late to work, but you find out that you would have been in a 5-car pileup had you have found your keys on time.
Yes. So how intricate is your design was my prayer. And the very next day, Christopher, my brother-in-law, sent me a video of Tim Tebow, talking about John 3:16 and that whole story. Have you heard that story?
I know John 3:16.
Okay, but the
verse.
Story about him and this whole...
No.
Oh gosh, Ryan, it is so cool. That story, I won't spoil it for you, but that story showed me that he does... It was an answer to my prayer when it was still fresh in my mind. He plans even the angle of the blades of grass. Like, he plans everything. He doesn't control us, but he definitely is able to maneuver things around all our choices in a way that still accomplishes everything he wants us to accomplish. Right. So,
but do you think he allows for free will within that, or do you think it's
our free will?
Okay.
He knows what our free will is going to be, and he designs whatever he needs to design around those choices.
Right. So we think we're making the choices, but in reality, he already knows what choices we're going to make. But do you think he interferes with those choices at all? Like, or do you think we have full choice and free will to make a decision?
I think we have free choice to make a decision, and everything has a consequence, and he designs those consequences, and those consequences then shape us to make the next choices that we're going to make. And he already knows what choices we're going to make and how to shape us and what things to do. We do it to our kids too. we set up an argument in such a way that kind of bottlenecks them into a choice. And then we, based on the next thing they do, this is humanizing God, which is never a good thing.
Right.
But at least from through childbearing, I think we're able to understand his character a lot more.
Child rearing.
Well, I bear children.
But I don't.
But you don't.
So in your example, I can't learn those things. If you're,
does that only refer to pushing them out your vagina?
Yeah, childbearing is bearing the child in your womb. Child rearing.
I'll have to look that up.
Child rearing is bringing them up.
I believe you.
Yeah.
So.
You should, because I'm right.
You are a human walking dictionary.
Sometimes.
So, yes, through child rearing, we're able to understand him much better.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's what he does. I think it's just like that when we're talking to our kids, or even like I'll set hot eggs in front of my kid when they're very, very young, 6 months old.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say hot. And I will let them touch the eggs,
right,
because nothing permanently bad is going to happen to them.
But then they learn.
But they're going to learn hot before they burn themselves in a fire, which
right,
is permanent damage
yes,
sometimes.
Yes.
So I think that's a very, very rudimentary example of what
sure,
of how it works with
sure,
God. So we are in control of the choices that child is going to make, but we know what they're going to make. So
mm-hmm,
we use what we know to produce a consequential outcome that is still going to produce the lesson that we want.
mm-hmm.
So I think it's kind of the same thing. So that was really cool. So he doesn't let me live in my doubt a lot of the time. What was I saying?
You started to give an example of how the Lord never leaves you hanging. He always makes it.
Oh, so
real.
if I felt that he was leading me into something like Abraham killing his son,
mm-hmm,
that was Abraham, right?
Yeah, Abraham.
Sacrificing
Isaac.
his son,
yep,
Isaac. I would really have to. I would disobey God until he really showed me the truth in that.
Right. So that's something I definitely want to talk about, because this is, as you know, anybody who knows me well knows this is my biggest struggle.
It's difficult.
Right. Is knowing what God wants you to do, what God doesn't want you to, unless it's explicitly in Scripture. Like here's the example I use. I have people say to me, all right, Ryan, I'll pray about that. I say, great, cool. Then they come back to me and they say, okay, I prayed about it. Lord says I'm not going to do that. I say, okay. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say, what? Like who? You need to do this. No, I'm not going to. I don't know. But my question is always, I understand step one, which is I'm going to pray about this. So you ask the Lord, what do you want me to do here? Please make it clear to me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then I understand step three, Lord doesn't want me to do that. Right? Yeah. My question is, what in the world is happening in step two? I mean, I know people aren't hearing an audible voice from heaven. Yes, Ryan, I want you to do that. Yeah. That's not happening. And so what is it? Is it a feeling? Is it a sense? Is it an emotion? Or is it a straight up, and I've talked about this, like I think back to my appendix being out,
mm-hmm,
right? And I think to myself, okay, and a lot of people would say, that's because you shouldn't have gone to Vegas, Ryan. You shouldn't have gone to Vegas.
I think you should have gone to Vegas.
You got your appendix burst in Vegas because you went to Sin City, they'll tell me, right? But here's the deal, right? As you know, I was supposed to go to Washington 3 days after Vegas.
Right.
But I was in the hospital literally the day my plane was supposed to leave.
Mm-hmm.
So I look at that and I go, okay, I was not supposed to go to Washington on that trip. For whatever reason. Why do I say that? Because I couldn't.
Yeah.
I was literally forced not to go.
Right.
So that's a circumstantial thing where it's like, for whatever his reasons were, and I only say that because I believe he's in control of all things.
Yeah.
He could have easily allowed my appendix to be fine.
Yeah.
Or whatever, but he didn't. He let it rupture, and I was in the hospital for 6 days.
Mm-hmm.
And I missed my flight.
Mm-hmm.
So I look at a circumstance like that. That's the only thing in my own life I can say is solid. Yep, I know the Lord didn't want me to go there. Do I know why? No. But I know that I wasn't supposed to go. Well, how do you know that, Ryan? Because I couldn't. I literally couldn't go.
Yeah.
But that's not usually what you get from people. They say, I prayed about it, and the answer is no. I prayed about it, and the answer is yes. So I know you have a lot of experience with this yourself, so I'm wanting, just kind of give me a walkthrough of what that looks like for you.
Right. And so, I can't speak for those other people, but I do think, how you use, well, I don't know if you use your wife as a scapegoat. You don't want to do things. But I know Sean does.
Uh-huh.
I know he's like, oh, no, Diana,
right.
I can't. My wife wants me home or whatever.
Yeah.
So they might not have really heard from the Lord, these people who are coming back to you. It's just their scapegoat. They don't want to do it.
Right. They already made up their mind to begin with,
yes.
and they're hoping the Lord's going to go along with that.
So I wouldn't put that in your experience box in your mind as these people are hearing from the Lord.
Oh, I don't.
I
don't at all.
They could be too.
Right.
But they could not be.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, that might be skewing our idea of what it means to have a relationship with him. So, or to hear from him. So it all starts with your heart. I feel like when your heart is not invested in the outcome, and you're willing to lay down whatever expectations you have of that thing that you're asking for an answer on.
To totally surrender to whatever he wants.
Totally surrender. Still, I mean, we're never going to get rid of our desires of how we want it to work out, but to truly say, you know, this life is so short, and our whole point of being here is to learn from you and to feed our spirit. When you have that attitude, you get your answer, I think, and more often than when it's muddled by a desired outcome. And so I think it's about being flexible enough in your heart response that you can kind of be manipulated in whatever direction the Spirit is leading you, and not manipulated by your own desires. And that's when you know that the outcome, and then you can look back at hindsight. Like for me, I'm getting better at anticipating what the Lord wants before it happens, because you have enough crappy experiences with him that you get to know him better, just like in a marriage. You know him.
Right.
And then
like I can know certain things I say to my wife are going to make her mad.
Yeah.
Because even if they're things when I first started saying them, I didn't mean them maliciously.
Right.
I meant them as a joke or whatever, but then I learn over time she doesn't like that kind of joke.
Yeah.
That's just going to put her in a bad mood.
Right.
Same concept?
Yes. So the first step, I think, in hearing God or being sensitive to the manipulation of the Spirit is knowing him, knowing his character. And if you focus on that, you can kind of get shaped by the experiences that he's giving you in a way that lines up with Scripture. And that will happen before you even read the Scriptures. Like you'll just be transformed into this thing that is more Christ-like as you let the Spirit manipulate your life without even reading it first, which tells me. And it's kind of cookie cutter for every Christian. I feel like there's certain things that are cookie cutter aspects of your walk that every Christian has as they get farther along. And I mean, that's my experience with it. I know when Monica was going through her pregnancy with Joseph, and I was a very big part of that. She lived with me during that. And there was a day where she was going to dance on the worship team, and she invited me to come, and I was going to go without question to be there for her and support her and show her that I love her and all the things that a good friend would do. And as I was getting ready, in the middle of my thoughts, there was an intrusive thought that I wasn't even thinking about that said, if you want to help her, you need to go where you're getting fed. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that. That's going to be so embarrassing and hurtful and awful, and I don't want to do that.
You mean on that specific Sunday, you felt like you were being told to go to your church, not hers?
Yeah, I was getting ready to go to her church, and I was like dancing in the shower, and I was not even, there was no doubt in my mind. I did not have any apprehensions going for my friend to her church. Right. And then this thought, my mind got super quiet, which never happens. Like I have an ADHD brain. I'm almost 100% sure. Yeah. And it's never quiet in there. I don't even know what that's like. And after talking to Sean, brains are quiet sometimes. And I'm like, what?
Right.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So, I got, and then that sentence came in my mind exactly word for word. If you want to help her, you need to go where you're getting fed.
And that was more like a thought.
It was a thought.
It was like words in thought. It wasn't audible.
It was words in thought. It was
in your
not
mind.
audible. It was
Okay.
just an intrusive thought.
Okay.
Just popped in my head out of nowhere. Could have been random. It was very out of character for me, though. It's not my character that caused that, because it was very out of character for me to be like, boom, this is what you're going to do. And then, so I got out of the shower and I was feeling awful and not wanting to go tell her that, but I did. I said, I don't know what's going on, but I just got this thought that I need to go where I'm fed. If I really want to be there for you, that's what I need to do. And I'm really sorry. And I did. And I don't know what that did to her. I've never talked to her about it. I don't know how that impacted her and made her feel.
Right.
I don't know.
Well, you guys are still good friends today,
We
right?
are still good friends today.
So she doesn't hate you too much about it.
No, she doesn't. So that was one instance where I could consider that as the voice of the Lord, just
Sure.
in my head, in my thoughts.
Sure.
And so, but I've never. That's the most direct thing I've ever experienced.
And is it easier in that circumstance because it was something you didn't want to do? Does that make it easier in those situations? Like you're dancing, you're getting ready to go to this other church service. Like, for example, like let's say you didn't want to go. Mm-hmm. You really just didn't want to go. And you were kind of planning on not going, but then you prayed, Lord, let me know. And then you heard a voice, or not a voice. I hate to say you're hearing a voice. It makes it sound like you're crazy.
Fine, yeah.
You have a thought that says you need to
crazy.
go to... You need to go to your own church. At least in my mind, I put myself in that scenario. Nothing like that's ever happened to me, first of all. But if it did, I would almost feel like that would be harder for me to accept as from the Lord because it went with what I already wanted.
Yeah.
But if it's going in opposition to that and saying, no, you're getting ready to go, you totally want to go and help your friend, and the Lord's saying, don't do that.
Yeah.
I'd be like, okay, maybe it is the Lord then because, it's not going in line with my own flesh.
I don't think it makes it easier because it goes back to the heart response. Lay down your desired outcome and listen to the word of God. Dude, the Lord's timing is undebatable that it is him talking to you. Like, that's one thing where I'm like, oh my gosh. Like,
what do you mean? Like, give me
like
what you mean by that.
For example, just his timing. Like, okay, when I prayed about, Lord, do you plan everything down to the tiniest detail? And then I hear this Tim Tebow thing, and it answers that directly. The timing, the status of my heart in that moment is when he perfectly times a message.
Meaning you could have heard the Tim Tebow thing a month before
And
that. It would have bounced off your face like nothing.
Yeah.
But now, since you were in the place you were,
Yeah.
it meant something to you.
It meant something to
Okay.
me. Oh, here's another really cool example. I have so much to say. When I first started going through these moments of terror, where I was having day-long panic attacks, and this back in October of 2022, and I could not figure out what the heck it was, and I was just in panic all day. Did I tell you the story of when Sean left with all the kids? And okay, so I had been doing...
You may have, but go ahead and tell me again.
I would have anyway. 2 or 3 weeks. And this is unlike anything I've ever read, unlike anything I've ever heard of from anybody. I wasn't just having one panic attack a day. I was in a constant state of panic all day long, all night long.
Yeah.
I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't eating, which all made everything worse. Anyway, it was, I think, a tiny, tiny glimpse of what hell could be like. It was so bad. And I was, in this for like 3 or 4 weeks and in this state of constant panic and lack of sleep. And Sean was like, I'm going to take the kids and I want you to just pray. I want you to stay home with the Lord and I want you to just pray. And I'm like, okay.
What a guy.
Terrified of being alone.
Of course.
Because I'm thinking I'm going to drop dead any second.
Right.
And I didn't even have the dog there. Like, everybody was gone. Brent was gone. It's that time where he was still living with us, and my dad was gone. This is the first time I had been home alone since I became a mother. Wow. Truly home alone with nothing but fleas and bacteria.
So not no life.
Yeah.
Just,
There was life. I don't know. We don't have fleas anymore. And so he left, and about 30 seconds after he left, I start to have the worst panic attack I've had. I'm thinking I'm gonna die.
Right.
And my brain is buzzing and my teeth are chattering and I throw up. I'm out of, I think, straight panic. And this was the night before. This is the night after, the morning of getting Monica's text about demonic activity and how to cast out, the prayers you need to pray to cast out demons. And I am at an extremely vulnerable. This is like Jesus after 40 days of fasting and Satan tells him to make a sandwich. Right. I'm like, I'm at this point where I will pray anything, any truth that is in the Bible, I will take. And then I have this manipulation from maybe the Holy Spirit, maybe another spirit. I don't know, to pray these prayers to get these demons out of me, if that's what it is. And so I'm praying and I'm crying, and this is after I'm throwing up already, and I'm shaking, and I am asking the Lord, what is this? I need to know what I'm up against. If it's demons, okay. Whatever it is, I can't live this way. I need you. And I'm crying out to him and asking him for relief. And, oh God, what is this? And I'm going to die. And awful. Just curled over in a ball. I would say in a worship ball, like where people are, just face planted in the ground. Yeah. And I'm at my wit's end, and I have no idea what is going on, what's happening to me. And I'm praying for, if this is a demonic force or spirit, just get it out of me. Just whatever I need to say, whatever I need to do, I need to live my life. I need to teach my kids.
Total desperation.
Total desperation. And I had been trying to explain to multiple different doctors and multiple different therapists for the last 4 weeks, for that span of 4 weeks, what this feeling was that I had in my chest. It was it was the most uncomfortable part of all of it. Like the dizziness is whatever, the ear ringing is whatever, the teeth chattering, whatever, the clammy hands, all of the symptoms is whatever to me. But the one thing I couldn't deal with was this feeling in my chest. This, sometimes it radiated from it was this big, big feeling in my chest. And I didn't know what it was. And I had been trying to give it a name and tell people about it. And I'm like, I can't even tell you what it is. And I got real quiet. My mind got real quiet again. And he said, be still. Or I felt someone tell me to be still. And I was like, oh, okay. Okay, so I'm still. And I heard the voice in my head say, that's physical. This is physical. The shaking, the teeth chattering, physical. Like it was going through each part and saying physical. This is fear. This is fear.
The thing in your chest.
The thing in my chest is fear. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's what that is. And I couldn't give it a name. And then I started just opening up the Bible into all the verses that talk about fear and where it comes from and what it is and how to deal with it. And then I got up and I started to do the bills because I hadn't done the bills in 3 weeks. And then I heard that same calm voice say, it's going to come back and you're going to feel the fear and you're going to learn how to not react to that fear. And I was like, okay. And then that's it. That was the end of that level of intensity. I still have it. It's still there. I'm still dealing with it. But I am a more functional human being on the other side of that than I was before I ever experienced it. So that's another instance where I'm like, okay, that was you. That was the Lord. This is you. That's him. So that's a more direct thing. Instance where I do feel like I am hearing the Holy Spirit, or maybe at the very most explanation of it is the Holy Spirit is influencing my thoughts to have those thoughts that are not originating from my flesh. They are thoughts, they are my voice behind those thoughts, but they are originating from the influence of the Holy Spirit. So that's it. And then I have had other things happen, just timing, like songs, where I'm praying. But the whole cohesive theme behind every single one of those situations is the laying down of my own desires.
Right.
The coming to my wit's end and letting whatever the Lord says be truth to me. And even when I hear a song or a Bible verse after that or a teaching, it's laying it down. So I think that's what really has to happen. And when you don't hear from the Lord, or when I don't hear from the Lord or get an answer, it's because I'm like, Sean just asked me if I wanted to go get flown out to the East Coast for Christmas. He asked me this last night because Scott and Mariana are going to come here, so they want to fly us out there.
They're going to come here?
No, they don't want to come here for Christmas.
Do they live on the East Coast?
No, but they're retired and they're there for 6 months and then here for, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'm like, they want to take us to Disney World. Nice. Pay for it. The whole thing.
If you guys don't go, let me know.
Right? You'll take it.
We don't want to go, but the Hesters want to go.
How cool would that be for you guys? I'll put a word in for you. And I have a hard time laying that down before the Lord. I have a hard time saying, Lord, whatever you want in that situation, because I really don't want to fly.
Oh, you don't want to fly?
I don't want to fly. I don't want the crowds. I don't want the outrageous amount of money to be spent on that. It doesn't even. It's not even our money. So I don't want to lay that down because my heart is so invested in the outcome that I'm not going to get an answer. I don't think I'll get an answer.
So what do you do then in that situation? Do you just tell Sean, no, I don't want to go? Or do you just say, okay, let's go and see what happens? I mean, like if you're not getting a clear answer and the reason is because you can't put yourself aside completely, then what do? You have a decision to make. You either go or you don't go.
I will either have to deal with the consequences of disobeying the Lord, or I will learn how to do it right.
Which could be either way. Like you could go and be disobeying the Lord, you could stay and be disobeying the Lord. But you don't know what's the right answer. So do you think he's going to hold that against you if he knows that you really just don't know what decision to make?
No. I don't think he holds it against you, but I do think he designs your consequences and you will learn from them.
Sure, but I mean something like disobedience is a word that describes knowing what you're supposed to do and doing the opposite.
Yeah.
Or not doing what you're told to do.
Yeah.
So I think it's different if you just don't know. Like if you truly just don't know what the right answer is.
Right. It's different. In this case, I truly don't know if I'm supposed to go or not go. But I do know that I'm wrong in not bringing it to the Lord. That's 100% disobedience.
Right.
100%.
So you're making the conscious decision to not even bring it before him because you don't. But it's for a noble reason, in my opinion. Because if you know that you can't get yourself out of the picture, because like you're saying, all these other examples you're giving of him speaking to you in certain ways, it's because you, in certain circumstances, have been able to come to that point.
Or been made
to come to that point where you're like, okay, I just total surrender.
Yeah.
I'm totally dependent. I'm totally desperate.
Yeah.
And then the Lord's going to speak to you.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess in this circumstance, he could do that in some way, right? If he really wanted you to be in that place again, so he could speak to you clearly again.
Yeah.
He could.
Yeah.
But as of yet, it just hasn't happened. No. And that's supposed to be for December?
Yeah.
That's quite a while. No?
Seems like
it's around the corner.
So, yeah, I know I need to be like, okay, there's this thing brought up to me. Okay, so this last thing, we went to Arizona and it was a complete disaster. Like from beginning to end. We went there. We went there just for fun. We were supposed to go there just for fun, and then the death happened of Jose's dad, and then we went there. With that in mind, now we just last minute decided to bring the camper. Thank the Lord we brought the camper, because I would have been stuck in the house with my puking child, and it would have been so much worse.
Right.
But anyway, we brought the camper, and then we were faced with this decision for me to stay behind or for me to go back home with Sean. And I did not want to stay. Nothing about what I wanted to do. I did not want to stay. Like, no. And him take my 2 kids and drive all the way back without me in the car.
Right.
It makes me sick. It was a decision that it was against everything I wanted. Everything I wanted. But I submitted to my husband's decision. I was praying, probably 2 or 3 hours before he was going to leave. And I said, Lord, I can't make this decision. I can't do it because here's a situation where I had a strong heart response for the desire of the outcome, but I still gave it to God. I still said, Lord, I can't do this. I want to be there for my friend, but not more than I want to go home.
Right.
So you have to do this. You have to be the one who does this. And then Sean came in and he's very softly says, you should stay. And I said, okay.
And then he said, I'm going to call Ryan and tell him the plan and see about the kids.
Yes. Yes. So,
which I found interesting because normally in that situation, it would have been you. And as soon as that happened, I was like, I bet Diana doesn't want to stay.
I don't want to stay. I didn't want to stay. That's interesting that you interpreted it that way because I didn't even think of that.
Right.
But I didn't want to stay. So he left, and then this all went down. I didn't even get to help Monica hardly at all. And this all happened, and it was awful, and it was a huge trial for me. But for Sean, I said, did you pray about this before you made the decision? And he's like, not for the right things. I prayed for God to help us help them. But I didn't pray if we should leave you there or not.
Right.
And I was like, you...
How dare you!
Oh, I had so many things to say. And I said, this is a lesson for you. I was not a godly wife in my next step after that. But it was a huge lesson for Sean. He was very humbled by all of it. And it was a huge lesson for him. So it was all good. Were we supposed to stay? It was a great lesson. So, yeah. But would we have been... We would have also been blessed if we had laid it down before the Lord and Sean got some sort of inkling of we shouldn't do it. And my kids started puking on the way home. And I would also give glory to God in that situation. I would have said, oh my gosh, thank you so much. So we got blessings with either decision we made. We got a major life lesson that changed our lives, really. And we also got to know his character even more.
Right.
And Sean learned a really good lesson about being the head of the family.
Yeah, and which is ultimately the goal anyway.
Yeah.
Right? Like all these, and I had somebody say that to me once. I don't remember who it was now, but it impacted me because they said, it's not so much the decisions you're making. It's sometimes, and they said, this is what they said. They said, sometimes the Lord doesn't care what you do.
Yeah.
The decision made isn't the point. The point is, what's he going to show you through it or not? I mean, like if he's going to teach you something, it could be either way. You could be making the right decision or the wrong decision, right, in quotes. Is there a right or wrong decision in that case? If you're growing in the Lord through it, then it's the right decision.
Yeah.
Even if it's the wrong decision.
Right.
No, wrong.
But then I think there's a balance with that because you shouldn't make every decision in a whimsical way thinking, whatever, none of it matters. But as you get to know the Lord, you learn more what his will is for a situation. So, yeah, I don't know. That's my experience with it. And there's so much more too.
Oh, I'm sure.
There's a whole bunch more.
Yeah, we'll have to do a sequel with you, I think. Because there's a bunch of stuff that we could go down so many roads. Because this is what we do anyway.
Yeah.
This is just the first time we've ever recorded it.
We didn't talk about anything we disagree about.
That's because we're both right. And we don't have any disagreements.
We do.
I know. I'm just kidding.
We have some.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
We didn't go there because the Lord probably didn't want us to.
Yeah, I guess not. This will be the happy episode.
It wasn't for, yeah.
But yeah, we'll definitely do it again. Even if it's just to talk, maybe we won't record.
I know,
because
they're putting a time limit, but we can't do it around people because they'll just get annoyed.
Right.
John would too.
Right, yeah. Well, that's why I like doing it this way too, is having the quiet house. And, a lot of people are like, oh, Bethany and the kids don't have to leave when you do this. Don't make them. I say, I'm not necessarily making them leave. It's just like it's quiet and we can just talk, and it's not a matter of that.
Right.
Some people think we're just going to sit here and my whole family's going to be just doing what they do. Just be like, well, I don't know about that.
There's way too many topics that can't be said around.
Well, right, exactly,
anybody.
and that too, right?
Yeah.
And there's some pretty heavy stuff that we've talked about before on this. That
not us. I think there's some things.
Other people.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a bunch of episodes I probably wouldn't let my kids listen to.
Yeah.
But it's out there.
Mine either.
So yeah, well, here's your lot younger than mine, so.
But it is me.
It's you?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
My filter has been thickened.
What do you mean?
By experience and screwing up my kids.
Oh.
With
as
my
far
lack
as
of a filter.
What you're allowing them to.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
That's a cool talk too. That's a cool thing that I laid down before the Lord too. What time is it? Oh geez.
12:20.
I would talk to you and Danny both about sheltering kids.
Right.
Probably Danny more.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we've talked about it really in depth. But I was in the camp more of like guided exposure.
Mm-hmm.
And
which I agree on some things, by the way. I'm not totally anti-guided exposure. There's just certain things I don't think, which I think is everybody.
Yeah.
And that's why I always bring up things like pornography when we started getting like what we let our kids watch, and then there's that whole debate. And people say, "Oh, I just guided exposure." I said, "What do you guided exposure to let your kids watch porn?" No. I would never do. Never. Oh, guided exposure, right?
Yeah.
Someday they're going to have sex,
but at
right?
some point, will you teach them about it?
Sure, but not in that way.
Right, not like showing them.
Correct.
Yeah. But I think at some point I would like to have the conversation that it's out there. But then will they be like, what? And not even care? Of course they're boys. That's a tricky, tricky thing. But yes. So I remember me and Danny having a conversation once about it. And I was like, yeah, but, what about when they do get out there? And there's all these things that they didn't even know were there. And their bodies and their minds are just like, oh my goodness. Like I like shock. Culture shock, but not even culture shock, just curiosity. And address that curiosity when they're still in your house. And you can say, yes, these things are going to make you curious. I was more in the camp of that. Like, talk about these things with your kids. Mm-hmm. Then I got off the phone with my brother and I said, okay, Lord, I will not, this is after reading Job and being humbled years before, I will not claim to know, especially with my children's lives, I will not claim to know what is the right answer. No way. So you teach me this. And the next day I read Genesis again for like the upteenth time, but it was a study with my kids again. Right. And the verse that says the knowledge of good and evil is what brought sin into the world. Mm-hmm. The knowledge of good and evil is what happened to Eve and Adam when they partook in the sin.
Well, they ate of the fruit.
They ate of the fruit of the tree of knowledge, the knowledge of good and evil. And that really got my mind going, like an instant of just connections being made while I was reading this. And I got chills all over and I was like, my mind and heart were primed. I laid down my desire in my own parenting journey on what I thought was right or wrong. And the Lord just blossomed this idea that it was the knowledge of good. The snake was already in the garden. He was already there.
Right.
But it had no effect on them because they did not have the knowledge of good and evil.
Yes.
And I was like, oh my gosh. And I started thinking about how innocent children are when they're born. And they're born into the idea of Eden. They have no idea of good and evil. The only thing, the way they know about that is that sin gives them that knowledge. The knowledge of good and evil is then given to them when they get their first spanking or when they, whatever, when they fall, when they burn their hands on eggs for the first time. They learn that there's evil in the world. Right. And then that is what separates us from God. Is the knowledge of good and evil. Then this verse popped in my head. This is all in like 30 seconds. This verse pops in my head of approaching God with a childlike faith. And it doesn't mean frolicking around like you're 6.
Right.
It means the innocence of a child. Approach God with the innocence of a child that is untainted by the knowledge of good and evil, and you can believe him at face value.
Right.
So that really affected my parenting in a very big way, and so did screwing up Tyler. Screwed him up real bad by talking about my mom's death in way too much depth.
No.
And he was only 3 or 2, and he's very intelligent.
Right.
Very intelligent. And this little boy, who up until 2 was basically living in as close to Eden as he could get, got that whole veil torn, and he was trying to process the idea of finite life, and that he was going to lose me, and that he, and he started lashing out and peeing his pants again. He was already potty trained. He started doing horrible things at school. He'd already been there for a year. And it like he was abused. I'm sure I don't know how I didn't get CPS called on me because of the change in him.
Right.
And I didn't put 2 and 2 together. He started screaming when he would get his knees scraped or something, that all his blood was going to fall out. He'd come on my lap and say, "You're going to die someday." And I'm like, "Children of the Corn?" Like, dude, you're... And so I didn't have this. I didn't even know until 10 or 11 months later that I really screwed up. Like, really bad. And the kid he is now is not the same kid he was when he was 2. And so he needs therapy, but I'll probably put him in it when he's at an age where he won't get taken away from me for abuse. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But it's the knowledge of good and evil is definitely real.
Yeah.
And now I'm more in the camp of shelter your children from everything, because you will preserve that relationship that they're able to have with the Lord. The more knowledge we have, the further away we get from him, the more separation there is between him and us.
Well, and it's realizing that the world is the opposite of that, right? Like the world is the anti-God in a sense, right? And I mean, I think I agree. I agree with the shelter thing. I get criticized for it all the time. But I think it's by age. I think there's an age limit. Do I think that my kid should be 18 leaving the house, not even knowing what sex is, not even knowing that there's things out there? No, of course not. But I also don't think I should be exposing my 3 and 4-year-old to it either. Like there's an age there, and it's not even necessarily a number. Like it's a magic number. Oh, my kid's 13. Now we're going to expose him to these things and talk about these things. Right. It's every kid's different. Yeah. It's a maturity thing. Like Addie's talking to me the other night on the way home from your house about when am I allowed to date and when am I allowed all this kind of stuff. And she said, oh, well, I think Alora was 16 when she met Q and blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, well, first of all, when she met Q and they weren't dating. And I told her, I said, well, we don't do dating. We don't do dating. And she's like, well, I mean like a courtship or whatever you and Mom call it. I said, well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about what the difference between a courtship and dating is. Dating is you going out by yourself with another person of the opposite sex.
Never.
And
did you say never?
Getting to know them. Yeah, we don't do that. We don't do dating. We do courtship, which means that's the first aspect. And the second aspect is the whole point of it is if you are looking for your life mate. Now, I know that's old school. Yeah. A lot of people say, oh, Ryan, that's ridiculous. They're only 16. They shouldn't be thinking about that. Then they shouldn't even be involved with the member of the opposite sex unless that's what they're looking for. Yeah. Because otherwise, what are you doing? Right. You're just screwing around with some guy or some girl if you're whatever, and if you're a male.
And the consequences.
The potential consequences, right?
Of dating somebody on your heart and your shaping of what a marriage should be and all of those things.
Right, especially as a young girl. Yeah. Who will fall for anything that the boy she likes says. Right. Oh, we'll get married someday. Sure, we'll get married someday. Yeah. Sure we will. And I guys are like that. That's just what we do, because we're jerks. Yep. And, but for her to kind of be asking that, and it's like, well, yeah, but you have to be ready for that. Yeah. She said, well, Dad, what's the age? What's the age? There's no age. Yeah. You could be 25 and I would still tell you, yeah, you shouldn't be in a relationship yet. Right. You're not ready for a relationship. Right. You have to be ready for a relationship. Mm-hmm. And it was a good conversation that we had with her, and that I had with her. Bethany was out of town, so we haven't even had that conversation with her yet. And I said, "Why? Who do you got on the docket, hon? Who's out there?" And she, is not going to tell me, of course, but But I mean, we're not dumb. We always knew whenever Alora had a crush. I mean, she thought she was sneaky, but we always knew. Oh, parents always. We even knew when Kewen came into the picture. When he first came into the picture, he was. Oh, this guy's annoying, and he's this, and or whatever, and you would hear these stories. You'd hear his name occasionally, you don't hear his name for a while, and then like a year or so later, you start hearing his name all the time. Mm-hmm. I told Bethany one night, I said, hey, you think maybe there's something going on there with Alora and this Kewen kid? Because she's talking about him a lot, you know, and she tends to talk about the names you hear the most are the guys she has a crush on, you know. Yeah. And Bethany's like, I don't know. I'm not sure. I said, I don't know. I'm pretty sure. And then sure enough, I think a couple weeks later, we asked Alora about it. I said, hey, just out of curiosity, do you have feelings for this Kewen kid? And she goes, you know, and she kind of gets all bashful. It's like, yes, you know. And here we are years later. Now they're married.
Now they're married. You were right.
There you go. Well, yeah.
So cute.
But anyway. So I mean, definitely I'm a shelterer.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's derogatory. I don't think it's negative. People say it always in a negative light. Oh, you can't shelter your children. But see, they say that and I call their bluff.
Yeah.
I say, no. What you're saying to me is you don't think I should be sheltering my kids from certain things. Mm-hmm. Every parent believes in sheltering. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of what they're sheltering.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why I always throw that pornography thing out there, because that's the one thing most people will agree on. Yeah. I have yet to have a parent tell me, oh no, I don't shelter my kids from that. Me and my 5-year-old watch porn together all the time.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever said that, thankfully.
Yeah.
I'd probably call CPS on them. You know what I mean? But so it's not a matter of sheltering, it's a matter of what. Yeah. And people say, oh, Ryan, you don't let your 13-year-old watch PG-13 movies? I said, well, it depends on what's in it. Right? It depends on what's in the movie. I mean, I'm one of those parents that I will check reviews on every single thing that they're going to watch. Like, because even kids stuff now.
No.
Because with all the stuff they're pushing and everything, I said, I can't trust anything anymore.
Right.
I can't even put on a G-rated movie and assume that everything's going to be okay in it.
Right.
Because they got this push. Yeah. They're trying to shove all this stuff down my kids' throats. And it's like... And I support their right to make movies that way. I really do. Mm-hmm. But I also have the right to say, no, my kid can't watch that.
Right.
And if Disney's going to do that, then we're going to have to preview every Disney movie from here on out to see if it's okay or not.
Right.
So,
agreed.
You know, so that's where we're at. But yeah, we definitely have a lot more to talk about. So maybe we'll get this.
There's so much.
But yeah, we're going to have to cut it there. But yeah, thank you.
Hey.
Awesome. Good stuff.
It was good.
See?
I did not think we would fill 3 hours.
Yeah.
3.5.
Yeah. Well, yeah, 3.5 if you count all the breaks. It's probably going to end up being about
How long
3
do you
hours
think
and
it
10.
would take to exhaust everything we could talk about?
Forever. Really. I've said that about certain people that I meet with, too. You're one of them. There's certain people that whenever I get together with, it's never enough time.
Wow.
Ever. It always comes to the end, you're like, oh, crap. You know? Like, there's a handful of people in my life that are like that.
Yeah.
You know? And it's just like, but it's cool. So, Thank you so much for checking out this week's episode. If you have any questions or comments, please send me an email at whycan'twetalkaboutthat@proton.me. If you want to continue the conversation, please join the Why Can't We Talk About That podcast Facebook group. Also, if you haven't yet, please leave a review at Apple Podcasts or wherever you are listening to this from. Thanks. Here's a clip from next week.
Yes. Feminists, you know.
Right.
All right, we want equal rights. Mm-hmm. All right, so if a war starts out today, where are all the feminists? Oh no, let all the men be drafted. You know, like
right. We only want equality to a certain point. Yeah.
So if you want equality for everything, have equality for everything. You're going to be in a war.
Right.
If you don't want equality, all right, stay in the kitchen and make me a sandwich.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
You can take that part out.
No, that's going in the highlight clip. That's going to be in the what do you call it?
The intro.
Yeah, that'll be coming up on next week's episode. Listen to this chauvinistic pig.